Chapter 2239. A transparent flame rose up and instantly swallowed the dazzling golden flower petal. There was a small commotion in the surrounding crowd. She actually separated the crouching dragon carrot? The essence of the crouching dragon carrot is wrapped in the stamen. Once the petal is separated, the essence will quickly dissipate. Even I, who's not a celestial physician, know that the crouching dragon carrot needs to be refined as a whole. How could she not know? Who knows what she's thinking? I thought she was quite capable, but now, she's still a little reckless and ignorant. On the other side, Liang He raised his head to take a look and frowned. She was a celestial physician. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have made such a mistake. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed, and a trace of shock flashed across them. On the opposite side, the transparent flame in the heavenly square sacred cauldron, after surrounding the petal, quickly condensed into a ball and separated from the flame below. The transparent ball of flame floated in the cauldron, burning quietly. But that wasn't the most important thing. What surprised Liang He the most was that the transparent ball of flame seemed to be hollow. The crouching dragon carrot's petal was very fragile. If the temperature was slightly higher, it would directly burn. However, the flame had already wrapped around it for a while, and the petal was still intact. The only change was that the edge of the petal was slightly curled, as if it was due to the flame. But this wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, using this method could stimulate as much of the crouching dragon carrot's medicinal effect as possible. Liang He looked at it in a daze, and for a moment he was a little absent-minded. He had studied the formula for the stabilizing pill for a long time, but he hadn't tried it because he knew that the crouching dragon carrot wasn't easy to deal with. But now, the scene that unfolded before his eyes enlightened him. It wasn't easy to refine the whole thing, so it was better to break it down one by one. Breaking it down one by one would be able to concentrate and increase the success rate. But, if that was the case, wouldn't the purest energy contained in the stamen be wasted? Liang He hesitated for a moment, but still shook his head. He felt that Chu Liuyue's method wasn't feasible. He took out a crouching dragon carrot and carefully placed it in the cauldron. Under his control, the flames in the cauldron split into several streams and enveloped the entire hidden dragon carving. Everyone gasped in amazement. As expected of Liang He, his control over the flames is practically at the pinnacle. As expected of the youngest senior doctor of the illusory god palace. His sensitivity and flexibility in this aspect is not something an ordinary person can compare to. It's been a long time since he broke through to become a senior doctor, right? Although this foundation stabilizing pill is difficult, I think that he has victory in his grasp this time. Chu Liyue had already automatically ignored all the surrounding sounds. His eyes were fixed on the heavenly square medicinal cauldron in front of him. His entire body was tense, and his mind was highly tense. She wasn't as relaxed as everyone else seemed, or rather, she didn't care. This was because she herself did not dare to guarantee that she would succeed this time. Ever since she successfully refined the great physician-level pill in the Red Moon Desert, she realized that many of the prescriptions given by Dabao in the past were of this level. In other words, she had already learned these things before she had broken through. It was just that before she broke through, she was not very clear about the division of these levels, which was why Dabao had been fooled for so many years. However, there was also a great advantage to doing this. This allowed her to grow at an astonishing speed after she broke through that threshold. In the past, she had already understood most of those prescriptions. Now that she had officially broken through, many of the problems were solved. She did not need to spend any effort. She only needed to look at it a few times to master it. It was also because of this that she had put her energy into the senior doctor level prescriptions. Although she had never seen the prescription for the vitality stabilizing pill before, she was very familiar with these medicinal ingredients. She was also very familiar with the medicinal properties of these ingredients and the most suitable method of refining them. This was also why she dared to propose this bet. However, in the end, she had not had the time to truly try refining it before, so she could only be more careful. Her movements did not stop, and she quickly threw the petals of the hidden dragon carving into the cauldron one by one. Soon, Every petal was enveloped by a small transparent fireball. They floated in the cauldron, each forming a small world. Shu Jing raised her eyes and glanced over. When she saw the situation in the cauldron, she was shocked and frowned slightly. Others might not be able to tell, but she understood how difficult it was to do this. It was naturally difficult to refine an entire hidden dragon carving, but it was not easy to separate all the petals and refine them at the same time like she had done. From a certain perspective, this had extremely strict requirements for a celestial physician's control. The slightest negligence could cause problems. However, Chu Luiyue did not. All the transparent fireballs burned quietly in the cauldron, extracting the medicinal effects of the hidden dragon carving bit by bit. Shu Jing's gaze fell on Chu Luiyue's face. At this moment, her forehead was already covered in fine beads of sweat, and her lips were slightly pursed. It was obvious that this was a huge drain on her mental and physical strength. However, her eyes were still bright and clear, filled with determination and persistence. It seemed like she could still hold on for a while. Shu Jing's brows furrowed even tighter. She was just a doctor. Logically speaking, she should have died long ago, but why was Chu Luiyue still going on? On the other hand, Liang He's aura had been decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye since he started to process the hidden dragon carving. If this continued, it would be a problem whether he could hold on until the pill was formed. When little Hachi arrived, she saw this scene. There were already many people around, and they were all looking in the same direction. "Hey, everyone, please excuse me." Little Hachi could not see clearly from the outside, so she wanted to go forward. Her voice was soft and delicate, and many people turned around to look at her. When they saw that it was her, many of the people present revealed stunned expressions. Soon after, they hurriedly opened up a path. Little Hachi smiled and thanked them, then walked forward. Shu Jing noticed the commotion and looked over. When she saw that it was little Hachi, the expression on her face became even colder. "Didn't I remind you last time that you can't enter and leave Herb Mountain as you please?" Little Hachi smiled. "Eighth Oracle, I don't plan to go in either. Don't worry, I'll just stay here." Her eyes quickly swept over Chu Luiyue, and her eyes lit up, and her smile deepened. "I'm just here to see how my master won. It's the same whether it's from afar or close up." Chapter 2240. Shu Jing's expression was cold and indifferent as he said calmly, "You seem to have a lot of confidence in her. The competition isn't over yet, but you're already so sure that she'll win?" Little Hachi tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and blinked suggestively. "I can't help it. Who asked my master to be so outstanding?" Shu Jing laughed. Everyone could hear the contempt and disdain in his laughter. "It's better not to say some things in advance. Otherwise, when the results go against our intentions, it won't be easy to clean up the mess." Chu Luiyue was an arrogant person. Her subordinates were all like her. At this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly threw the remaining 2 petals of the crouching dragon carom into the cauldron. Then she slapped the cauldron. A cluster of reddish-gold flames poured into the cauldron and engulfed it. The blazing flames raised the temperature of the surrounding area. Shu Jing's expression changed. The reddish-gold flames were distinct. "Condense!" Chu Luiyue shouted. Following her command, all the fireballs in the heavenly square cauldron started to converge toward the center. Several fireballs merged with each other. The medicinal herbs that had been refined were also quickly condensed. This action immediately caused many people to exclaim in surprise. "She's actually planning to form the elixir? Isn't this too fast? Is the crouching dragon carom still in the cauldron? I didn't see it clearly. There seemed to be another flame coming out just now. She's so rash. Looks like she's anxious. Sigh, I'm afraid that Shangguan Yu is going to lose this round." Everyone was pessimistic. Many people shook their heads. Obviously, they thought that the competition was about to end. However, at this moment, all the flames in the heavenly square cauldron finally merged. Then, a fist-sized elixir was condensed and formed. A powerful aura gradually spread from the top of the cauldron. Buzz. The heavenly square cauldron was hit by the force of the elixir and buzzed. All the sounds disappeared at this moment. Shu Jing's heart sank. He could hardly believe his eyes. The elixir was formed? The elixir was really formed. How is this possible? Invisible energy fluctuations continued to spread out from the pill. This voice startled Liang He. He subconsciously looked up and saw a round, shiny golden pill shrouded in the transparent flames. It was shrinking continuously. This was the final stage of the refinement. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it was clearly going to succeed. Liang He's mind was in a mess. Wasn't she a doctor? How could he possibly refine a supreme doctor-level pill? In a moment of absent-mindedness, the flame in the cauldron suddenly lost control and burned wildly. Boom! An explosion rang out. Liang He had a bad feeling in his heart, and he immediately tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and retreated. The flames in the medicinal cauldron ignited and exploded, and several sparks spread out in all directions with astonishing power. Seeing this, Xu Jing immediately waved his sleeves. A barrier flew out and trapped the bronze medicine cauldron. Only then did it stop the power from scattering wildly. The flames inside were gradually extinguished, and ashes flew everywhere, leaving behind only a mess. Liang He's chest shook, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire face was pale. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared blankly at the scene in front of him. He knew very well that he had completely failed this time. But on the other side, under the continuous tempering of the flames, the elixir had already changed from its original appearance to the size of a longan. The bright golden light was pure and rich. Swoosh! Finally, the elixir was completely refined, and it suddenly flew out of the cauldron. Chu Liuyue's eyes were sharp and her hands were fast. She quickly flew up and grabbed the elixir tightly. Then, without hesitation, she put it into a black jade box that she had prepared beforehand. Click! The jade box closed and locked the elixir inside. However, the air was still filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. Chu Liyue let out a long sigh of relief. It was done. Her red lips curled into a smile, and she turned to look at Xu Jing. 8th Divine Envoy, the competition is over. Please take a look at this vitality-stabilizing pill personally and see who won and who lost this round. After saying that, she flicked her wrist and sent the jade box out. Xu Jing was still a little dazed. Seeing that thing flying towards her, she subconsciously reached out to catch it. The cold touch from her palm to the bottom of her heart finally made her sober. Her whole body seemed to be frozen. Chu Liyue didn't rush her. She just looked at her calmly and seemed to be very patient. Everyone's eyes fell on Xu Jing. Obviously, they were also waiting for Xu Jing's answer. Xu Jing had never felt this kind of uneasy feeling before. She gritted her teeth, finally looked at the jade box in her hand, and then slowly opened it. Click! A pill that was entirely golden in color was quietly lying within. With just a glance, Xu Jing immediately understood that this was indeed a successfully refined vitality-stabilizing pill. Her slender fingers gripped the jade box so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly as she asked with a smile, 8th Divine Envoy, why aren't you saying anything? How is my vitality-stabilizing pill? Who is the winner of this competition? You are the judge. Naturally, everyone will only believe you if you say so. She wanted Xu Jing to admit that she had won. Xu Jing's throat was dry. She opened her mouth, but she felt that this sentence was really difficult to say. Suddenly, the void shook and ripples spread out. A blurry figure slowly appeared. 8th Divine Envoy. Xu Jing was shocked. She immediately turned around, and a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. Why are you here? Chapter 2241. Chu Liyue looked up. The ripples in the air covered the person's appearance and figure. She could barely make out that he was a tall man. He didn't walk out of the mist. His entire body seemed to be shrouded in the mist. Even his voice sounded as if it was coming from afar and could not be heard clearly. 8th Messenger of the Divine Palace, are you treating the entire Herb Mountain as your personal property now? The voice was cold and calm, but it carried a heavy pressure. Every word was like a heavy stone falling down, making it hard for people to breathe. Shu Jing was the first to bear the brunt. Her face turned pale. She immediately lowered her head and said with a hint of panic, "Shu Jing doesn't dare." Everyone held their breaths. It was so quiet that they could hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. At this moment, it was as if the entire space had frozen. Chu Liuyue's eyebrows moved slightly. Who was this person? How could he make Shu Jing, the 8th messenger of the divine palace, be so respectful and even fearful? They heard the man continue, "Don't dare? Then do you dare to say that today's farce didn't happen because you used your status to do whatever you wanted?" Shu Jing was shocked. Only then did she realize that the other party was here because of this matter. But, in the end, this was just a competition between two celestial physicians. Similar scenes often happened in the illusory god palace. It wasn't a big deal. The person in front of her rarely appeared. Every time he appeared, it must be because of that person's intentions. But why did this matter disturb that person? Countless thoughts flashed through Shu Jing's mind. It was chaotic, but she couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. She pursed her lips and defended herself. "It seems that you misunderstood something. Today's matter was mainly because Shangguan Yu wanted to take the crouching dragon Karam. But she wasn't a supreme doctor and didn't have a bloodline totem. She wasn't allowed to take this top-grade herb. I persuaded her several times, but she still insisted. In the end, she suggested that she wanted to compete with Liang He. In other words, the source of all this was Chu Liyue. If she wants to use it, just give it to her. Why do you have to deliberately make things difficult for her?" The other party interrupted her. Shu Jing frowned. "I've never deliberately made things difficult for her. I'm just following the rules." Rules? That person seemed to laugh. "Whose rules?" Shu Jing was instantly speechless. His lips trembled slightly, and his entire body was wrapped in a layer of cold air. She had been in charge of Herb Mountain for many years and had always followed her rules. At first, she was still a little restrained, but then she realized that no one seemed to care about this, so she gradually relaxed. In the illusory god palace, countless celestial physicians were courteous to her. Anything related to Herb Mountain was up to her to decide. Over time, it was inevitable that he would become complacent. As of today, the rules had become even stricter, and Herb Mountain had become her sole authority. But she never would have thought that that person would choose to pursue the matter today. Since tens of thousands of years ago, anyone could enter and exit Herb Mountain as they pleased. But you acted on your own initiative and imposed all kinds of restrictions on those who enter and exit Herb Mountain. You should be punished. From today onwards, all of your rules are abolished. This voice spread far and wide, clearly landing in everyone's ears. Shu Jing felt as if she had been slapped twice in front of everyone. Her face was burning with pain. In front of so many people, this person didn't leave her any face at all. The surrounding people were still silent, but when they heard this, they secretly exchanged glances with each other. Who did the 8th divine emissary offend? But for so many years, it had always been like this. Why did today suddenly? In the future, anyone who wants to come to Herb Mountain can directly enter and leave. They can also take whatever herbs they want without any restrictions. 8th divine emissary, remember, you're in charge of Herb Mountain, but that doesn't mean that you control Herb Mountain. Shu Jing's entire body trembled. Her originally delicate and cold face was now deathly pale. She clenched her fists and finally couldn't help but take a step forward. But nothing can be accomplished without rules. I'm doing this for the illusory god palace. You're just a divine emissary. You don't need to worry about the illusory god palace. That voice was faint. The emperor said that if you don't want to be the 8th divine emissary, there are plenty of people who can replace you. Shu Jing felt as if she had been hit in the head. Her legs went soft and she almost knelt on the ground. There was no other sentence that could be more lethal than this. The surrounding people were also shocked, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Was this the emperor's will? It seemed that the emperor was serious this time. Such a warning was definitely not a joke. If Shu Jing made any more mistakes, the position of the 8th divine emissary might have to be handed over to someone else. She had been the 8th divine emissary for tens of thousands of years, and she could be considered to have a lot of experience. But even so, if the emperor wanted to punish her, it was just a matter of a sentence. How did Xu Jing offend the emperor? Yes. Xu Jing didn't dare to say anything else. She clenched her fists in her sleeves, and her meticulously manicured nails almost dug into her palms, causing her to feel pain. The figure gradually disappeared, and the void quickly returned to its previous calmness. However, the hearts of the people inside and outside of Herb Mountain were raging with waves of shock. After a short silence, someone turned and left. With one person taking the lead, the others quickly followed. Not long after, the originally lively crowd actually quietly dispersed just like that. Chu Luiyue surveyed her surroundings and fell into deep thought. These people obviously knew about the existence of the emperor, and they were extremely afraid of him. So much so that after that person left, the surrounding people didn't say anything and tacitly left on their own. They didn't even dare to talk about that person. They didn't know what kind of person he was. Could it be the lord of the palace of the illusory god? But it didn't seem like it. She couldn't figure it out, but she also knew that now wasn't a good time to ask these questions. She could only slowly understand it later. Lord Divine Emissary. She raised her voice slightly and called out to Xu Jing. Can you return my vitality stabilizing pill to me? As long as the people present weren't blind, they could see that she had won this round. Now that the biggest problem had been solved, Xu Jing's opinion wasn't that important anymore. Moreover, even Xu Jing couldn't protect himself now. Xu Jing came back to her senses and slowly turned around to look at Chu Luiyue. She took a deep breath and threw the jade box over with a flick of her wrist. Little 8 flew over leisurely. He looked around and stretched his back. Sigh. The scenery inside Herb Mountain is indeed different. Even the air is sweeter than outside. I thought that I wouldn't have a chance to come here in the future. Who knew that the world was so fickle? Xu Jing's face faintly turned green. Little Mina crossed his arms and tapped his fair chin gently with his finger. He said slowly, "Don't worry. Lord Divine Emissary, I guess that our master would win. Do you believe me now?" Chapter 2242. Xu Jing didn't say a word and turned around to leave. Her speed was very fast, and she disappeared behind the distant mountain peak in a short while. It looked like she was running away in a sorry state. Little Hachi shrugged. I told her the truth, but she refused to listen. I thought she was very powerful, but now it seems that she's just SOSO. Chu Luiyue put away the stabilizing pill. All right, there's no need to make things difficult for yourself because of this kind of person. Let's go. Little Hachi blinked her beautiful eyes and leaned forward. Master, who exactly is the emperor you're talking about? Even Xu Jing is so afraid of him? The other party didn't even come personally. He just sent someone to pass on a message. Look at how scared Xu Jing was. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and shook her head. I don't know. But, to be able to remove Xu Jing from the position of the 8th divine envoy, his status is obviously respected. That's right. Master, I just heard someone say that ever since Xu Jing ascended to the position of the 8th divine envoy, he has been tyrannical in Herb Mountain for tens of thousands of years, and that emperor has never cared. I don't know why he suddenly did this today. What do you think is going on? Could it be that he knows that Xu Jing is making things difficult for you, so he specially came to help? Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. You sure know how to think. How long had she been in the illusory god palace? Not to mention seeing him, this was the first time she had even heard of that emperor's name. How could it be because of her? Little Hachi hugged her arm. Master, I'm not talking nonsense. You see, there hasn't been any movement for so long. This is your first time in Herb Mountain, and this happened. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Actually, it's not just me. I think there are many others who think so too. Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment. It's probably that Emperor has been dissatisfied with Xu Jing for a long time. Today, he just happened to find an opportunity and made a move. Little Hachi was startled and murmured softly, "That's true." If that was the case, it was very likely to be so. She had always been carefree, so she quickly threw this matter to the back of her mind. Master, when did you break through to Supreme Doctor? Why didn't I know about this before? Just now. What's wrong? Forget it. Pretend I didn't ask anything. Little Hachi waved her hand in frustration. Big Brother had been urging her to quickly break through to become a senior doctor, but she did not pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, her master would actually break through just like that? Besides, was it really appropriate to use such a casual tone for such a big matter? They were all humans, but why was there such a huge gap between them? Little Hachi gritted her teeth. When she went back, she really had to work harder. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too shameful for her master in the future? Please wait. Liang He's voice came from behind them. Chu Liwei paused and looked back. Young Master Liang, is there anything else? Liang He's gaze swept across Little Hachi, then cupped his hands at Chu Liwei, looking a little embarrassed. Miss Shangguan's medicine refining skills are extraordinary. I admire you. Previously, he thought that the other party was just a senior doctor and could not be compared to him. Who knew that the person who lost in the end would be himself? Not only did Chu Liwei break through to Supreme Doctor, she even succeeded in refining the vitality stabilizing pill on her first try. Such talent and strength was indeed something that even he could not compare to. He was sincere when he said, "I'm impressed." Chu Liwei smiled carelessly. Young Master Liang is too polite. Actually, I suggested the competition today because I wanted to get the crouching dragon carrot. I hope young Master Liang does not mind. No. Liang He immediately waved his hand. To be able to learn from Miss Shangguan, I have benefited a lot. This was the first time he knew that the crouching dragon carrot could be refined in this way. However, he also knew how high the requirements for a celestial physician were. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to do it. Chu Liwei nodded. Actually, she did not have any opinions about Liang He. Compared to Xu Jing and the others, his attitude was already very good. Of course, she also knew that a large part of the reason was Little Hachi. However, Little Hachi was not interested in him. If young Master Liang has nothing else, we will take our leave first. Liang He hurriedly said, "Wait. Actually, I do have some things I want to say." He hesitated for a moment, then looked at Little Hachi and said nervously but sincerely, "Miss Little Hachi, Little Hachi sighed. Could it be that she did not make it clear enough? She really had no interest in him. I say, young Master Liang, I don't know if you have heard of this saying, a forcibly picked melon is not sweet. I have already expressed my feelings. What else do you want?" Liang He did not expect her to be so straightforward and was momentarily at a loss. "I just want to, don't think about it. I already have someone I like." Little Hachi bluntly interrupted him. Chu Liwei glanced at her. Seeing the smile in her eyes and her relaxed expression, she swallowed the words that had reached her throat. Liang He's face immediately paled, but he also felt a little unwilling. I wonder who Miss Little Hachi likes? Is it someone from the illusory god palace? Then, Miss Little Hachi, my words may be a little harsh, but they are sincere. A girl like you is beyond the reach of mere mortals. Although I have many shortcomings, I can be considered outstanding in the illusory god palace. Miss Little Hachi blinked. It seems that young Master Liang really likes this girl? Liang He cupped his hands. I am sincere. Then, Little Hachi tilted her head. Why don't this girl take you in as well? You won't be able to sit in the position of the main wife, but seeing that your talent in celestial physician is not bad, I will give you the position of a side wife. How about it? Liang He was shocked and widened his eyes. Little Miss Little 8, what are you talking about? Little Hachi shrugged, looking very sad. Didn't you hear it? Sigh. There are so many handsome men in the world. This girl can't bear to part with any one of them. If young Master Liang is willing to condescend, this girl can give you a chance. Big Brother already said that he allowed her to take in a husband. Liang He finally realized what she was saying. For a moment, his blood boiled and his emotions became intense. After a while, he finally waved his sleeves. Miss Little Hachi, even if you don't like this Liang, You don't have to humiliate me like this. Everything that happened before was just this Liang's fault. From now on, this Liang will not pester you anymore. With that he left angrily. Chu Luiwei glanced at him. Tieske, you've really infuriated me. No matter what, he is the youngest supreme doctor in the illusory god palace. He was angered by you and ran away. Who knows what people will say if this spreads out? Little Hachi came over with a smile. Master, aren't you the youngest supreme doctor now? If he is angry, then let him be angry. What's the big deal? Chu Luiwei shook his head helplessly and pulled her back. Someone will be able to cure you sooner or later. Digression, Yan Qin, main wife. Chapter 2243. As soon as she returned to her residence, Chu Luiwei found that an energy vortex had formed in the sky above the courtyard. The abundant energy of heaven and earth was surging downward. She was certain. Little Zhou was about to break through. This movement did not attract the attention of others. In the illusory god palace, there were many venerable gods, but there were few supreme gods like Little Zhou. Therefore, even if they sensed the fluctuations here, no one paid too much attention. Chu Luiwei brought Little Hachi into the courtyard, and Shangguan Jing just came out of his room. Ever since he came here, he went straight into his room and almost never came out again. Seeing the two dark circles under Shangguan Jing's eyes, Chu Luiwei was stunned. Taizu didn't rest well? Shangguan Jing sighed. Sigh, it's not that I didn't rest well, I didn't rest at all. He rubbed his temples, threw a short knife in his hand on the stone table and sat down. Chu Luiwei glanced at the thing. It was shining brightly and extremely sharp. It was a good venerable artifact. You've been studying this recently? Yes and no. Shangguan Jing shook his head. I vaguely felt that I had touched the threshold of refining a sacred artifact, but I never succeeded. Every time I was just a little bit away. He had not rested for such a long time. He had been trying to break through the shackles, but unfortunately he had not succeeded. Chu Luiwei thought of what she had talked about with Rong Xiu. After thinking for a moment, she raised her head and looked at the distant illusory god palace. If this illusory god palace was exactly the same as the one in the Red Moon Desert, then perhaps the secret of the sacred artifact lay in the black jade square inside? If she could enter the illusory god palace, then all her questions would be answered. Forget it, this kind of thing can't be rushed. Shangguan Jing had been in the weapon-refining venerable realm for many years, so he was not in a hurry. No matter what, there was still some hope now. It was much better than when there was no hope at all. Who is about to break through? Seeing the swirling energy vortex, he asked in surprise. Chu Luiwei nodded. It's Xiao Zhou. A trace of surprise flashed across Shangguan Jing's face. So fast? I remember that he just became a high deity not too long ago. In his impression, Changwan Zhou was still a skinny young man with delicate features. Who would have thought that he would become a god so soon? He seems to be about the same age as you, right? This innate talent. Shangguan Jing clicked his tongue. Chu Luiwei smiled helplessly and briefly explained the eruption of extreme cold energy in Xiao Zhou's body. He has no choice but to make a breakthrough now. Otherwise, the accumulated power in his body would be enough to destroy him. Shangguan Jing's expression became more serious. I see. He knew it was impossible for ordinary people to break through to this level in such a short period of time. The main reason Chang Wanzhou was able to do so was because of the astonishing power of extreme cold sealed within his body. I wonder where the power of extreme cold in his body came from? Shangguan Jing murmured thoughtfully. To be able to seal such a power, he shouldn't be an ordinary person. And after so many years, Chang Wanzhou actually managed to survive. Even he was quite amazed. This was actually a question that Chu Luiwei was curious about. Chang Wanzhou only said that it had been like this since he could remember, but he didn't know anything else. And the person he was looking for back then, boom. A powerful energy fluctuation came from the room. Chu Liuyue's expression was firm. He was about to break through. Then, a bone-chilling chill spread out from the room. Chu Luiwei clearly saw that a layer of white and transparent frost was rapidly condensing on the tightly shut door. The chill quickly spread everywhere. After a while, the eaves and pillars were all covered by this layer of ice. And there was no sign of it stopping. Shengguan Jing's eyes flashed with shock as he suddenly stood up. What's going on? Chu Luiyue frowned, and a hint of worry appeared in her heart. This aura could not be more familiar. It was the extremely cold power in Chang Wanzhou's body. Now, it seemed that this power had been completely released. She did not know if he could withstand such a shocking pressure. At this moment, the sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from the sky. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw several silver tianlei flying over from afar. She was suddenly stunned. This tianlei actually came from the lightning pool? Just as this thought flashed through her mind, the tianlei had already arrived in the sky. Then, the frozen door opened with a bang. A figure dashed out of it and went straight to the top. It was Chang Wanzhou. He was obviously planning to face this tianlei head-on. Boom! The tianlei that arrived first exploded and instantly enveloped Chang Wanzhou's body. The other tianlei that came after him followed closely behind. For a moment, silver light splashed in the sky, and the energy went wild. In the sky far away, there were still several bolts of lightning that were flying towards them in an endless stream. This scene finally attracted some people's attention. Who's breaking through? Looks like it's quite a big commotion. It seems to be Shengguan Yu's residence. Could it be that one of her subordinates is about to break through? I heard that she brought 3 exalted gods with her. Could it be one of them? Then it must be a supreme god, right? But isn't this a little too grand? If this person succeeds in breaking through, his power will increase tremendously. However, I heard that they don't have bloodline totems. Even if they become supreme gods, it's still meaningless. Although everyone was a little surprised, they weren't too shocked by it. To a large extent, they did not take Chu Luiyue and the others seriously. Even if they broke through, they did not think that there was a future for them. More and more tianlei were gathering. Chu Luiyue could barely distinguish Chang Wanzhou's figure. Suddenly, one of the tianlei came toward the few people in the courtyard. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to move, she felt that something was wrong. She quickly stopped Shengguan Jing, who was about to make a move. Taizu, wait, that's Shi Jing. Shengguan Jing was confused. What? As the two of them were talking, the tianlei had already landed in the courtyard. At this moment, they finally saw that it was really Shi Jing. The reason why they were mistaken was because there was a silver tianlei on his back. They were quite far away just now, so the people below did not see it clearly. Master, why are you looking at me like that? Seeing their strange expressions, Shi Jing was stunned for a moment before he suddenly came back to his senses. He reached behind his back and pulled the tianlei off. Why is there still one? Crack. He shattered the heavenly lightning with one hand. Chapter 2244. Chu Luiyue, Shengguan Jing? Little Hachi's mouth twitched, and she took 2 steps back. Fourth brother, what's the meaning of this? Why did you become so wild after coming to the Illusion God Palace? Shi Jing's face darkened. Of course, he was dark to begin with, so there was no difference. Little Hachi, don't talk nonsense. Your fourth brother is fine. Little Hachi pointed at the shattered tianlei in his hand. At this moment, the fine silver light had silently entered his body. Then what is this? Shi Jing coughed. This is the tianlei that I didn't have time to shake off just now. Didn't I go to the lightning pool before and wander around there? I don't know why, but these tianlei can't be shaken off and keep following me. If it weren't for the fact that Chang Wanzhou was preparing to break through to the supreme god level and attracted several tianlei to him, he would probably be stuck there for a long time. Even so, he still brought a few back. On the way, he dealt with them as he ran, but he still missed one. This led to the current situation. Little Hachi clicked her tongue. Fourth brother, you're really something. I don't see many girls chasing you, but this tianlei is sticking to you? Shi Jing had a headache. He didn't know what was going on either. Shi Jing, you said that tianlei followed you here of its own accord? Chu Luiyue suddenly asked softly. Shi Jing nodded. Master, I'm absolutely telling the truth. He had always been honest. There was no way he would lie in front of Chu Luiyue. I know. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. I just think it's a little strange. This is a little strange? Shengguan Jing felt uncomfortable all over. Why did each and every one of them seem to be so calm and collected? Come on, Tianlei had taken the initiative to follow him, and he hadn't even attacked yet. He had never seen such a thing in all these years. How could these people be so calm? Chu Luiyue glanced at him and raised his eyebrows. If Taizu saw what happened to her in the depths of the lightning pool, he would probably faint from shock. Considering that his family's Taizu was getting on in years, Chu Luiyue decided not to say anything for the time being. This illusory god palace is different from the divine ruins world. Even if it's strange, we have to accept it, right? Shengguan Jing choked. He thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. Is that true? Chu Luiyue chuckled. Ever since you came to the illusory god palace, you haven't come out to take a good look, right? This illusory god palace indeed had many interesting places. It was true. Ever since that line of words flashed in the sky and summoned all the cultivators of the world, everything had changed. Shengguan Jing suddenly felt that it wasn't that hard to accept. After all, they had already seen many things that were beyond their knowledge and expectations, hadn't they? He looked at Mitsui again. You not injured? Mitsui chuckled. I'm not injured. And my strength has increased a lot. Chu Luiyue smiled. Taizu might not know, but the lightning pool can refine the divine body. Many people in the illusory god palace go to the lightning pool to cultivate and improve their strength. Shengguan Jing nodded in understanding. I see. It seemed that he couldn't stay in this place forever. He had to go out and take a look. Chu Luiyue looked at Mitsui again and felt that something seemed to have flashed through his heart. Boom, boom, boom. Several sounds came from the sky. Even Chu Luiyue was amazed by this scene. When she broke through to the divine realm, it caused a huge commotion, and Chang Wanzhou wasn't much inferior. The extreme cold power stored in his body was truly vast and shocking. Sun Yi also walked out of the room. He first glanced at the door and the frost on the pillars, then raised his eyes and looked up at the sky. Finally, all the Tianlei gradually disappeared and entered Chang Wanzhou's body. His figure gradually became clear. At a certain moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from his body. Divine breakthrough. Illusory God Palace. Xu Jing's face was pale as she walked forward with shaky steps. Her hands clenched into fists in her sleeves as she lowered her head slightly. Her eyes were empty and unfocused. Everything that happened just now was still replaying in her mind. Whose rules are these? You're in charge of guarding the herb mountain, not managing it. If you don't want to be the 8th divine envoy, there are plenty of people who can replace you. A faint sweet and fishy taste spread between her lips and teeth. Immediately after, she felt a sharp pain. She had unconsciously bitten her lips until they bled. A trace of blood seeped out, making her look even more haggard. But at this moment her entire body was dull, and she did not react to this. Someone walked towards her and blocked her way. Xu Jing subconsciously stood still and raised her head to look. The person who came was Jin Yunlai. At this moment, he was expressionless, but there was a layer of biting cold air between his brows. His eyes were faintly surging with anger. Xu Jing's heart trembled. She had always been a little afraid of Jin Yunlai, not only because he was stronger than her, but also because he was ranked 7th and had a higher status than her. Many people thought that all the divine envoys had the same status, but that was not the case. The ranking of the divine envoys itself represented a strict hierarchy. It was just that they usually did their own jobs and did not interfere with each other, so this was not obvious. But if something big happened or at a critical juncture, Jin Yunlai, who was ranked ahead of her, was definitely qualified to teach her a lesson. Looking at his reaction now, it was obvious that he already knew what happened at Herb Mountain. 7th Divine Envoy She was interrupted by Jin Yunlai as soon as she opened her mouth. What did you do to alarm that person? Xu Jing gritted her teeth. 7th Divine Envoy, you should know what happened. I was just doing my own thing step by step. Jing Yunlai stared at her sternly and coldly. Shu Jing almost couldn't take it anymore. She closed her eyes. I went overboard. I shouldn't have set so many rules for Herb Mountain, and I shouldn't have mistakenly thought that I had any control over Herb Mountain. That's not it. Jing Yunlai's tone was firm. Shu Jing was stunned. What do you mean? That person personally came over and said that Herb Mountain is very important. It's also true that you overstepped your authority and controlled Herb Mountain for many years. But why, regardless of whether it was earlier or later, did it have to be today? Jing Yunlai narrowed his eyes dangerously. What's more, these things may seem important to others, but to the Emperor it's not worth mentioning. It's definitely not worth him taking action. You must have done something else and crossed that person's bottom line. Chapter 2245. Shu Jing's face was filled with shock. But I didn't. She suddenly thought of something and her expression changed. Could it be because of that Shangguanyu? But even if she has the support of Precious Treasure Pavilion, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? Jing Yunlai frowned. Actually, after knowing about this matter, he also thought about it a lot. After guessing and guessing, it seemed to point to that person. But didn't she just come to the Illusion God Palace not long ago? Why would the Emperor personally come for such a person? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem right. But other than this reason, there didn't seem to be any other explanation. It seems that she's more important to Precious Treasure Pavilion than we expected. Jing Yunlai paused. I've reminded you before that you shouldn't casually provoke the people that Precious Treasure Pavilion wants to protect. What happened now? Being reprimanded in public and losing face was one thing, but the most important thing was that her position as the 8th Divine Envoy was also in danger. Shu Jing bit her lip and couldn't say anything. Even if she didn't want to admit it, she knew that she was in big trouble this time. And it was very likely that it was because of that Shangguanyu. Why would the Emperor do this for such a person? The Emperor's intentions aren't something that you and I can guess. This matter is over. Don't do it again in the future. Jing Yunlai's gaze was cold. Otherwise, let alone me, even the first divine envoy won't be able to help you. Shuddering from head to toe, Shu Jing nodded with difficulty. Thank you for the reminder, 7th divine envoy. I understand. Chang Wanzhou slowly opened his eyes. In an instant, a cold light seemed to appear in those clear and cold eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He let out a long breath. The extremely cold power sealed in his body had been converted into his own divine power. Abundant energy surged in his limbs and bones, and every part of him seemed to contain an astonishing explosive force. He raised his hand and pointed forward. Buzz. The void shook. Ripples spread out in all directions. He swept his hand and calmed the ripples. This feeling of lightness in his body. It had been many years since he felt so light. He raised his eyes and looked ahead. At the end of the distance, a majestic palace stood. Sacred, solemn, and inviolable. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the expression in his eyes had returned to normal. Then his figure moved and he came to the courtyard. He stood still a few steps away from Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's lips curved into a smile. Congratulations, Xiao Zhou. It was very rare for someone to become a god at such a young age. What's more, his body's condition was rather special. Being able to succeed this time was really something to be happy about. Chang Wanzhou fixed his eyes on her, and there seemed to be waves surging in his eyes. Chu Luiyue was startled. Xiao Zhou, what's wrong? Chang Wanzhou lowered his eyes. Thank you, Master. Chu Luiyue felt that he seemed a little strange, but he couldn't tell what the problem was. The way he looked at me just now, perhaps it was because he had just become a god and was not used to it yet? Chu Luiyue thought to himself. She stepped forward. Give me your hand. Chang Wanzhou obediently raised his hand. His wrist was thin and white, as if it could be easily broken with a little force. However, who would have thought that such a young man had become a god? Chu Luiyue put her fingers on his wrist and separated a part of her power to check it. The power of extreme frost in his body had indeed completely dissipated and turned into his own power. However, the sudden burst of power was too strong and caused a great impact on his key meridians. There was indeed some loss. However, this was not important. He just needed to recuperate. She retracted her hand and handed over the stabilizing pill. Now that you are a god, your strength has been greatly improved in all aspects. You should be able to recover by yourself. With this stabilizing pill, you will be completely healed in less than half a month. Chang Wanzhou took it with both hands. The jade box was cold to the touch, but he felt hot in his palm. Thank you, master. Chu Luiyue smiled and rubbed his hair. Why did you suddenly become so serious after becoming a god? Chang Wanzhou's rose petal-like lips curved slightly and said softly, Master is master. Chu Luiyue did not mind. He had always been quiet and reserved. I don't have to worry about your body anymore. Chu Luiyue was very happy, but then she immediately shook her head. I don't know who put the seal on you. Chang Wanzhou lowered his eyes and did not say anything. Forget it. Anyway, it's fine now. It doesn't matter if we can't find out. Chu Luiyue said. She did not know how many years ago it was. Chang Wanzhou himself did not remember, so it was even harder to say. Chang Wanzhou nodded. I'll listen to you, master. Chu Luiyue could finally let go of one of her worries. After saying a few more words, she decided to make a trip to Zhenbao Pavilion. She had not finished copying the mythical flame diagram yet. In addition, she also wanted to see if she could get a chance to meet the second-in-command of the Treasure Pavilion. When Chu Luiyue arrived at the Treasure Pavilion, there was almost no one there. Ming Shu was arranging the medicinal herbs on the shelves. Hearing the voice, Cheng hurriedly turned around and saw Chu Luiyue. He immediately smiled. Oh, Miss Shangguan, why are you here today? Chu Luiyue looked around. I came when I was free. But your shop, why is it so quiet? Cheng laughed. People can now enter and leave the herb mountain at will. They can get whatever medicinal herbs they want. Naturally, there are fewer people here. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. This seemed to be caused by her? Digression. February, silently Empress, kill the Empress. Xiao Zhou. Don't be so dramatic. February, aggrieved, 6 p.m. Chapter 2246. It was rare for her to feel a little embarrassed. I'm really sorry. I didn't expect this matter to blow up and even implicate Zhenbao Pavilion. Zhuo looked at her strangely. Miss Shangguan, why do you say that? Chu Luiyue coughed. If I didn't insist on going to Herb Mountain to get the crouching dragon carrot, all these things wouldn't have happened and affected Zhenbao Pavilion's business. Oh, you're talking about this? Ming Shu immediately understood and laughed. You don't have to apologize for this matter. Anyway, Zhenbao Pavilion doesn't rely on those herbs to make a living. It's just a little less money. Whether it's Xian formations, divine weapons, or even divine beasts, they're all much more important than herbs. Chu Luiyue was stunned. You mean, think about it. The illusory god palace has that herb mountain, and there are countless heavenly treasures growing there. Although the 8th divine emissary has set many rules, most heavenly doctors are still able to enter and get what they want. Only a small part of it needs to be operated by Zhenbao Pavilion. Speaking of which, this amount of money isn't much. You don't have to take it to heart. Chu Luiyue, this Zhenbao Pavilion is really rich and overbearing. So many herbs business and they just gave up on it. If it was Sanson, she would probably cry on the spot. She carefully thought about Zhuo's words and felt that it made sense. However, she still felt a little apologetic for causing losses to others. You, on the other hand, are really famous in the illusory god palace now. Ming Shu gave a thumbs up and praised from the bottom of his heart. Everyone said that because Miss Shangguan insisted on competing with Liang He in alchemy, that person finally took action and suppressed the 8th divine envoy and abolished all the rules she set. From then on, everyone can enter Herb Mountain as they wish. Who knows how many people are grateful to you? Chu Luiyue laughed. You're joking. This matter really has nothing to do with me. She just wanted to get a few crouching dragon carrots. As for what happened after that, it really wasn't in her control. Zhuo chuckled. No matter what, Your position in the illusory God Palace will be different from before. When they see you, they will have to thank you personally. The corners of Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly. He didn't take this matter to heart. Actually, she didn't really care about how those people treated her. It's good that you don't blame me. This time, I'm here to continue copying the mythical flame diagram. Ming Shu hurriedly said, Please. Chu Liyue asked as he walked upstairs. Is the second master feeling better? Much better, much better. Who would have thought that Miss Shangguan was still thinking about this? Ming Shu asked in surprise. Chu Liyue stopped in his tracks and smiled faintly. I wonder if second master has the time to meet me this time? Ming Shu looked a little troubled. I'm afraid that's not possible. You don't know, but our second master hasn't returned for a long time. This time, on the one hand, he needs to recuperate. On the other hand, we need to show him the bills of the treasure pavilion for the past few years. I don't think he has time to see you in a short period of time. He glanced at Chu Liyue carefully. Miss Shangguan, do you have something urgent? Chu Liyue paused for a moment and chuckled. Not really. Since second master doesn't have time, then forget it. It's the same if we meet in the future. With that, she turned and walked up to the second floor. The entire second floor was as quiet as ever. Chu Liyue went straight to the room from last time. After entering, she found that everything was exactly the same as when she left last time. Zhao stood at the door and said with a smile, Don't worry, only you can come in here. No one else is allowed to barge in. So, it's the same as when you left. Chu Liyue thought that it was good for them to do this since the mythical flame diagram was a treasure here. At least it would save her a lot of trouble. Then you go ahead. I'll leave now. Chu Liyue nodded. Take care, Lord Ming. Zhao left very quickly. It was obvious that he trusted her very much. Chu Liyue pulled out a chair and sat down. Then she took out the mythical flame diagram. This time, Chu Liyue copied 15 Xian formations in one go. The ones in the first volume were not difficult for her, so she finished them very quickly. Then she picked up the second volume and looked at it for a long time. When she flipped to the Heavenly Demon Xian formation, she paused and stared at it for a while. It's indeed a little difficult, she muttered softly. Even a great grandmaster would need a lot of time to completely comprehend it. No wonder Xiao Ran was trapped for so long. It's a little similar to the Sky Shuttle formation, she said thoughtfully. In fact, all the Xian formations that started with the word Tian in the second volume seemed to be a little similar to the Sky Shuttle formation. Because she had already forcefully engraved the Sky Shuttle formation in her mind, it was much easier to look at these now. Although she had already memorized many Xian formations in the Red Moon Desert, it was not so easy to master them. Fortunately, her realm had increased, so these were not too big of a problem for her. After staying for a while, she stood up. After handing over the copied Xian formations to Ming Shu, she quickly left. Originally, she wanted to return to her residence directly, but halfway there, she suddenly noticed a figure flying across the sky. She looked up and saw a familiar back view. The seventh divine envoy? Looking at the direction, it was still heading for the Heaven Gate. She blinked her eyes and immediately realized that someone else had probably come. The Heaven Gate would be open for a year. During this period, all the cultivators in the Divine Ruins could enter the illusory God Palace as long as they could cross the sea and climb the bridge. It had been almost a month since they came here, so it was normal for others to come. Chu Liyue looked in that direction and was curious. She wondered who had come this time. However, she was a little far from the Heaven Gate, so she could not see the facial features of the people. She could only vaguely see that there were quite a few people, at least 7 or 8. Jin Yunlai arrived at the Heaven Gate and began to inspect them one by one. Chu Liyue looked for a while and realized that for some reason, they seemed to be a little slow and did not come in. She was also a little bored from waiting, so she turned around and planned to leave. However, just as she took a few steps, she heard a voice from afar. Yo, isn't this Master Yu? Chu Liyue paused and looked to the side. The man in front of her had already crossed the Heaven Gate and was looking in her direction. At this moment, without the cover of the Heaven Gate's light, she finally saw the other party's face. Who are you? Chapter 2247. Chu Luiyue said calmly. The man's expression froze for a moment. Chu Luiyue looked at him inquisitively with a sincere face. She really didn't know this man. The man took a deep breath, straightened his clothes, and said word by word, "I'm sorry. Nan family Nanjin Shu." Chu Luiyue blinked. Oh, the Nan family? She had some impression of the name Nanjin Shu. He used to be an elder of the Nan family and wasn't very famous. After Nan Yifan and the others died, he quickly rose to the top and became the current patriarch of the Nan family. Originally, it was not his turn to sit in this position, but after that battle, the Nan clan had suffered heavy casualties, and there were not many venerable gods left. This gave Nanjin Shu a chance. During this time, there hadn't been any news from the Nan family. They were probably recuperating. Chu Luiyue thought they would need a long time to recover. She didn't expect them to come to the illusory god palace. "We're nameless. It's normal that you haven't heard of us." Nanjin Shu quickly adjusted his state of mind and his expression returned to normal. Chu Luiyue didn't want to continue the conversation. After responding, she turned to leave. "Master Yu, please wait." Nanjin Shu immediately called out to her. Chu Luiyue turned back. "Patriarch Nan, is there something else?" Nanjin Shu smiled and his gaze landed on the letter at her waist. "Nothing, I just find it strange. You don't have a bloodline totem. Why are you here?" Chu Luiyue also smiled. "I can't help it. My talent is too good. Although I don't have a bloodline totem, I'm much stronger than most people. I thought I might as well walk around the illusory god palace." "What? Does Patriarch Nan have something to say?" Nanjin Shu's eyes twitched. He knew Chu Luiyue was sharp-tongued. Now that he saw it, it was true. Just as he was about to retort, his heart suddenly trembled when he met that pair of dark, calm eyes. He didn't forget how ruthless this woman was. If he fought her head-on, he would be the one at a disadvantage. Thinking of this, he chuckled. "Of course not. I'm just surprised to see Master Yu here. Such a small matter can surprise Patriarch Nan. Your psychological endurance is really not that good." Chu Luiyue shrugged. Nanjin Shu's expression darkened. "You, Nanjin Shu." Jin Yunlai suddenly called out to him. Nanjin Shu immediately turned around and cupped his fists. "Seventh Divine Envoy, what can I do for you?" Jin Yunlai quietly glanced at Chu Luiyue. "Settle these people down first, then come to the illusory god palace." These words were directed at Nanjin Shu. Nanjin Shu immediately replied respectfully, "Yes." Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes slightly. What did Jin Yunlai say? He wanted Nanjin Shu to go to the palace of the illusory god? Wasn't the palace of the illusory god heavily guarded? Wasn't it forbidden for ordinary people to enter? She thought about how much time and effort Mu Yafeng had spent on the star passage to obtain the right to enter. And Nanjin Shu went in just like that? Nanjin Shu's eyes flashed with pride, as if he saw her shock. "Master Yu, we'll meet again in the future. However, I'll be spending most of my time in the palace of the illusory god, so I don't think we'll meet again." Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled. "All right, Patriarch Nan, just wait." Nanjin Shu suddenly felt a chill in his heart. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. After a while, he snorted. "Master Yu, you don't have a bloodline totem. You don't know how difficult it will be to enter the palace of the illusory god. However, it seems that you're very confident in yourself." Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. "What, Patriarch Nan, are you worried that I won't be able to enter the palace of the illusory god?" "I'm not worried. I'm just stating the facts." Nanjin Shu smiled coldly. He knew how difficult it was to enter the palace of the illusory god. Even if Shangguan Yu was extremely talented, without a bloodline totem, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Chu Luiyue didn't seem to care. "It's great that Patriarch Nan can enter the palace of the illusory god. The palace of the illusory god has been quite dangerous recently. Who knows when someone will take care of it? Staying in the palace of the illusory god is the safest. I don't have to worry about your safety." "You," Nanjin Shu's face turned green with anger. However, he still felt some fear towards Chu Luiyue. He could only fling his sleeves and leave. Chu Luiwei glanced at the remaining people. They were all gods of the Nan family. Seeing the figures of those people gradually disappear into the distance, her brows slightly furrowed. There weren't many gods left in the Nan family. Did they bring the rest here? Didn't that mean the Nan family was just an empty shell? Or did they decide to put all their energy into the palace of the illusory god? It was obvious that the Nan family had an unusual relationship with the palace of the illusory god. At that moment, a few more people arrived outside the gate of heaven. Jin Yunlai turned around and looked at them. "Did you guys come together after discussing?" He asked indifferently. Although his tone was as cold as usual, there was a hint of familiarity in his tone. "It's just a coincidence." A voice with a hint of laughter sounded. It was lazy, evil, and indifferent. Hearing this voice, Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. She immediately turned around and narrowed her eyes. Standing outside the gate of heaven was a man at the front. It was Jun Jiuqing, who she hadn't seen in a long time. The moment she looked over, Jun Jiuqing also looked over. Then he raised his eyebrows and his thin lips curled into a smile. "Long time no see. How have you been?" Digression, the Empress, kill the Empress. This is a line from Zhen Huanzhuan. It doesn't mean you is the Empress. Chapter 2248. Jin Yunlai glanced back. "You know each other?" Jun Jiuqing's smile deepened. "Of course." Chu Liuyue's gaze swept between the two. It could be seen that the relationship between Jun Jiuqing and Jin Yunlai was very subtle. "Did you hear what I said to Nanjin Shu just now?" Jin Yunlai said simply. "Once you've settled everything, you can come to the illusory god palace yourself." Jun Jiuqing responded. "Thank you, seventh divine emissary." Jin Yunlai nodded and turned to leave. When he passed by Chu Luiyue, his footsteps paused, as if he wanted to say something. "You?" Chu Luiyue looked up at him. Jin Yunlai looked at her clear and bright eyes, but suddenly swallowed the rest of his words. What did he want to ask? What could he ask? Did the emperor's action to punish and warn Shu Jing have something to do with her? But she had only been in the illusory god palace for less than a month. She probably hadn't even heard of the emperor's name, so how could she know all this? Jin Yunlai looked down and glanced at the letter on Chu Liuyue's waist. The handwriting on it was still as clear as when he gave it to her on the first day. It was as if she hadn't lost anything during her time here. Jin Yunlai was surprised at first, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt that this should be expected. Chu Luiyue first walked a segment of the star path, then went to the depths of the lightning pool, then was selected by the treasure pavilion to copy Xian formations. No matter which one of these things was picked out, they were all extremely outstanding. Not to mention, she had just broken through from a senior doctor to a senior doctor and successfully refined the foundation stabilizing pill on her first try. It was normal for her to be able to maintain the handwriting on the letter all this time. Other than the fact that she didn't have a bloodline totem, her performance in other aspects was impeccable. Seeing that he didn't speak, Chu Luiyue inquired. The seventh divine envoy? What was he trying to say? He stared at her for so long without saying anything. Jin Yunlai regained her senses and stared at her. Nothing. With that, he lifted his foot and left. Chu Luiyue watched him leave and blinked. The seventh oracle's attitude towards her seemed to be better than before. Although the change was subtle, she had always been sharp. Jin Yunlai looked at her for a long time with a complicated look in her eyes. However, she no longer looked at her with contempt and disdain like when she first found out that she didn't have a bloodline totem. Could it be because of the recent events? Chu Luiyue rejected the idea as soon as it surfaced. If it was someone else from the illusory god palace, perhaps their opinion of her might have changed due to her recent performance. However, Jin Yunlai, the seventh divine envoy, was not included among these people. With his status, what kind of genius expert had he not seen before? In fact, he himself was one in a million. There were only a few people who could complete the Star Road in one go in 10,000 years. And he was the one who took the shortest time. Just this point alone was enough for him to look down on all the heroes. Would he be interested in her little tricks? You want to enter the illusory god palace? An evil and lazy voice came from behind her. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that Jun Jiuqing had come up behind her. Her red lips curled into a smile. Who doesn't want to come here? However, unlike the family Yi, ordinary people are qualified to enter the illusory god palace as soon as they arrive. Jun Jiuqing lowered his head slightly and leaned closer. He looked into her eyes and smiled. Then I'll take you in? Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed quickly and then relaxed. The family Yi really knows how to joke. He could enter the illusory god palace. From a certain point of view, he was indeed powerful. But it would be a joke if he said that he could take others in. She raised her chin and her eyes fell on the people who came in behind him. If the family Yi is so capable, why don't you take them in? Jin Yunlai had made it clear that he was only allowed to go in by himself. The treatment was exactly the same as Nan Jinshu of the Nan family. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows slightly. How can they compare to you? Soon after, he smiled and said, besides, if it's something you want to do, I won't joke around with you. If she really wanted to enter the illusory god palace, then he would take her in. Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed and her red lips curled into a perfect arc. She asked softly, the family, who are you looking down on? She wanted to go in, but she didn't need to ask him for help. She didn't need to rely on anyone. One day, she would be able to step into the illusory god palace openly. Jun Jiuqing looked at her, raised his hands, and sighed softly. His voice was lazy and low with a hint of hoarseness. You've wronged me. I'll give you whatever you want. Can't I do that? Chu Luiyue tilted her head. If I want something, I'll take it myself. If I can't, I still have my husband. The family you're an outsider. You don't have to worry so much, right? Hearing the words, my husband, the smile on Jun Jiuqing's face instantly froze. A layer of coldness gradually surged from the bottom of his eyes. He looked at her quietly, but there was a hint of sharpness in his eyes. You shouldn't have chosen him. Chu Luiyue's expression also turned cold, but she soon found it funny. This is my business. What does it have to do with you? The family shouldn't waste your time on me. I won't appreciate it anyway. I might even backstab you. Let's say goodbye while I'm still in a good mood. If we continue to talk, blood will splatter on the spot and dirty the Elysium and the star path. That's not good. With that, she turned to leave. Jun Jiuqing looked at her back. He slowly clenched his hands behind his back. You'll know eventually that he's a lunatic. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks. She didn't turn around. She just tilted her head and said calmly, but firmly and stubbornly, even if he is, so what? Jun Jiuqing felt a lump in his throat. Since I've decided to be with him, I naturally believe in him and protect him. I've given all my heart and mind to him. As for the family Yi, there are so many women in the world. You can have whatever you want. Why are you always obsessed with me? That's all I have to say. The family Yi is on your own. With that, Chu Luiyue lifted her feet and left. A breeze blew, rolling up her black hair and skirt. Clear and bright, but so far away. The last trace of a smile on Jun Jiuqing's face gradually faded. The figure quickly disappeared from his sight. After a long while, the people behind him exchanged glances. Finally, they whispered, "Family head, we should go." Jun Jiuqing looked away. You all know where to go. They immediately bowed and replied, yes. Jun Jiuqing took a deep breath and headed for the palace of the illusory god. Chapter 2249. Chu Luiyue thought as she walked. The scene just now kept replaying in her mind, leaving her puzzled. There were so many people in the Divine Ruins world, but why were only Nan Jinshu and Jun Jiuqing able to enter the palace of the illusory god? In terms of talent, strength, and experience, there were others who were stronger than them. But Jin Yunlai only chose the two of them. Suddenly, she thought of something. Rong Xiu once said that the status of the Nan family and family Yi was higher than those first-rate families in the Divine Ruins world. This was because the ancestors of these two families had once followed the same person. And that person was related to the battle of the gods in the god-slaying tomb 10,000 years ago. In the past, she didn't pay much attention to this matter, but now that she thought about it, that person's identity seemed to be very important. Could it be related to the illusory god palace? Otherwise, it really couldn't explain Jin Yunlai's attitude towards them. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came. Chu Liwei subconsciously looked up and suddenly saw a lustrous light flying out of the palace of the illusory god, rushing in a certain direction. Her pupils shrank, and her heart started to beat quickly. Because that lustrous light was exactly the same as the light on the armillary shield. Almost in an instant, she immediately guessed something. This light must have come from the black jade square in the palace of the illusory god. Her eyes stared at the light that was speeding away. Her figure moved and she did not hesitate to follow. At the same time, this movement attracted the attention of many people in the illusory god palace. Many people flew up and looked in the direction where the light was heading. Another divine artifact is about to appear? I wonder who succeeded this time. Who else can it be? The number of top blacksmiths in the illusory god palace can be counted with one's fingers. Looking in that direction, it's most likely Kong Qinglin, right? He has been a blacksmith venerable for many years, and now it's his turn to take another step. You can't say that. The illusory god palace is still the illusory god palace, but the palace of the illusory god is no longer the illusory god palace of the past. All sorts of discussions entered Chu Liuyue's ears, causing her to frown. What do they mean by that? In the past, it was very easy to refine saint artifacts, but now it was very difficult? The illusory god palace they were talking about was actually the Black Jade Plaza. This was because it was what determined whether or not one could successfully refine a saint artifact. Or perhaps, this change was related to the armillary heaven shield? She suppressed the guesses in her heart and followed the direction where the light fell. Finally, she arrived in front of a courtyard. In the courtyard, there were piles of all kinds of refining items everywhere. It looked messy. However, when Chu Liwei took a closer look, he realized that there were several venerable artifacts hidden inside. The venerable artifact, which was extremely precious in the eyes of others, was like trash in this place. It was casually thrown away and piled up with all kinds of other things. She glanced around and saw a few more king artifacts. She held her breath. Just the items placed in the courtyard alone would cause countless people to fight over them if they were placed outside. However, the middle-aged man standing in the middle of the courtyard didn't seem to care about it. At this moment, he was looking at a bell in his hand with a fervent and excited expression. The bell was only the size of a palm and was made of bronze. It was suffused with a faint blue color. There were strange patterns engraved on it, and one could vaguely feel the powerful pressure it emitted. "Ha! It's finally done." The middle-aged man's voice was filled with undisguised excitement. Only the heavens knew how much he had sacrificed for this day. People came from all directions, but they all stopped outside the courtyard and didn't get any closer. "Congratulations, congratulations. Brother Kong has successfully refined a saint artifact. In the future, you will be a true refining saint." "That's right. I've long said that Brother Kong's talent is outstanding and he's hardworking. He will definitely succeed. Now, it's really as expected. Brother Kong, we will have to rely on you in the future." No matter what everyone thought, they had to be polite on the surface. Refining saints had extremely high positions in the illusory god palace. From now on, Kong Qinglin could be considered to have truly soared. Kong Qinglin laughed. "Thank you, everyone." Chu Liuyue's gaze paused on the bell in his hand for a moment. That was indeed very familiar. Why are you here?" A voice came from the side. Chu Liwei turned her head and was a little surprised. "Taizu? You're here too?" Sheng Guanjing laughed. "I came over after sensing that someone was trying to refine a saint artifact here. It's been a while. But did you just come back from the treasure pavilion?" Chu Liwei immediately understood. Taizu had been studying how to refine a venerable divine artifact. It was normal for him to rush over when he heard the commotion here. She nodded and didn't mention that she had met the Nan family and Family E at the Heavenly Gate. "I originally planned to go back directly, but I saw something strange on the way here, so I followed." She paused and asked, "Taizu, Did you see something here? Sheng Guanjing nodded and then shook his head. If you want to say it, I've figured out something. But as for the specifics, I'm afraid it's very difficult to implement. You mean, did you see that streak of light just now? Chu Luiyue nodded. That light came from the palace of the illusory god. Previously, I said that I always felt that something was missing when refining artifacts. Now, I finally understand. It's missing that streak of light. Taizu's eyes flashed and he lowered his voice. This light is very similar to the aura contained in your shield. It was more than similar. It was the same. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and fell into deep thought. However, even if you know this, it's useless. Look at the few beside him. They're also refining venerables. Don't they want to break through? But the key is that this matter isn't that simple. Sheng Guanjing sighed. Although I saw how he refined this saint artifact, if it were me, I might not be able to succeed. Even now, he still couldn't figure out how that lustrous light had been summoned. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the crowd. Brother Kong, when you go to the palace of the illusory god in the future, don't forget about us. Kong Qinglin laughed heartily. Of course. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Then, she looked at a person not far away and asked, May I ask, after breaking through to the refining saint realm, one can enter the palace of the illusory god? That person was a little impatient, but when he turned around and saw that it was Chu Luiyue, he revealed a look of surprise. Sheng Guanyu? Chu Luiyue nodded. That person's attitude immediately became much better and said, Well, you just came here not long ago, so it's normal that you don't know. In the illusory god palace, all refining saints are qualified to enter the palace of the illusory god. Chapter 2250. I see. Chu Luiyue was deep in thought. Thank you. That person quickly waved his hand. You're welcome. Such a small matter is not worth mentioning. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Sheng Guanjing also glanced over in surprise. Strange. Why was this person so nice to them? Because they didn't have a bloodline totem, they were looked down upon in the illusion god palace. Speaking of which, I should thank Miss Shangguan instead. That person gave a thumbs up and said with admiration. If it weren't for you, we would still be worried about the herbs. So it was because of this. Chu Luiyue suddenly remembered what Ji said before. After the herb mountain was completely opened, many people in the illusion god palace were very grateful to her. She didn't take it to heart at that time, but now, it seemed to be true. Kong Qinglin put away the bell, and with a tap of his foot, he headed in the direction of the illusory shrine. Countless pairs of eyes watched him leave. Envy, admiration, jealousy, emotion. In short, everyone had different thoughts. Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something and looked at Sheng Guanjing. Taizu, let's go back first. I have something to discuss with you. What? You want to leave the illusion god palace? Sheng Guanjing had just sat down when he heard Chu Luiyue's words and was shocked. Now? I want to go back to the Peach Blossom Cove, Chu Luiyue said calmly. Why is that? Sheng Guanjing couldn't figure it out. He subconsciously looked at the letter on Chu Luiyue's waist. The handwriting on it was as clear as before. In the short term, there was no need to worry about being kicked out of the illusion god palace. But now, she actually said that she wanted to leave? Chu Luiyue smiled and explained, I will come back. It's not that I won't return forever. My purpose this time is to invite Senior Tang Ku or Mr. Su to come. Sheng Guanjing was stunned for a moment and suddenly understood something. Is it because of the artifact refining saint? Chu Luiyue nodded. If a weapon refining saint could enter the illusory god palace, then Tang Ku or Su Li would definitely be able to come. In fact, with her current strength, it wouldn't be a problem for her to complete the star path and enter the illusory god palace. But that would take a long time. After all, there were too many Xian formations on the star road. Even though she had basically seen all of them, it was still extremely exhausting to decipher them one by one. If they could invite Tang Ku or Su Li over, then they could directly enter the illusory god palace. Ever since Dugu Mabao had cut off his connection with the purple scales, she had not been able to find out anything related to him. She was worried that if time dragged on, their situation would become even worse. If someone could enter the illusory god palace ahead of time, they might be able to find some clues. This was a matter of great importance, and this person had to be someone she could trust. In that case, it could only be these two. Shangguanjing knew that she was here to save someone, and it was very likely that the person was in the illusory god palace. It was no wonder that she would think that way. If everything goes well, that would be for the best. I don't know if the illusory god palace allows people to enter and leave like this. Shangguanjing was most worried about this. What if Chu Luiwei was not allowed to enter again after leaving? Chu Luiwei was not worried about this. The opening of the illusory god palace's heavenly gate was to summon those top cultivators. No matter if it's Senior Tang Ku or Mr. Su, they are definitely qualified. The illusory god palace will definitely not reject them. As for me, you forgot that I'm still helping Precious Treasure Pavilion copy the Xian formations. Shangguanjing's eyes lit up. That's right. Look at me, I almost forgot about this. Precious Treasure Pavilion would definitely not let her leave before she finished copying the mysterious diagram of fire. If the seventh divine envoy did not allow her to come again, Precious Treasure Pavilion would definitely step in. Precious Treasure Pavilion will definitely protect you, but what kind of background do they have that even the divine envoys don't dare to offend them? Shangguanjing murmured. Chu Luiwei paused for a moment. No matter who it is, it's definitely a backer. This matter, it's settled. I'll leave little Hachi and the others to you when I'm not here. Shangguanjing laughed. Your subordinates are all very outstanding. They don't need me to watch over them. Not to mention Sun Yi and Shijing, even Chang Wanzhou had broken through to God Realm. As for Hua Shuangshuang and little Hachi, although they were not the top cultivators in terms of cultivation, they were not bad either. In short, there was really nothing to worry about these people. When Chu Liwei heard this, she pursed her lips and smiled. You're an elder. With you around, you can restrain them a little. Shangguanjing stroked his beard emotionally. Hey, girl, how did you choose the people of the 13th Yu back then? Any one of them could fight very well, and none of them lost. Even that 13th Yu, although he's still young, is extremely talented. I remember that at that time, Dean Nen took a fancy to his talent and took the initiative to invite him to Lingxiao College to cultivate. This was not something that could be described with the word genius. In short, these people of the 13th Yu were all extremely outstanding. It was already very difficult for ordinary people to meet a few capable subordinates. But she had more than a dozen of them. And they were especially loyal to her and had been following her for so many years. Even Shangguanjing was amazed every time he thought of this. Chu Luiwen narrowed her eyes slightly. Actually, it's not that complicated. When I chose them back then, I didn't expect this day to come. She did not choose the 13th Yu all at once. Instead, she chose them one after another over nearly 10 years. And at that time, she did not think too much about it. For example, when she met 13th Yu, he was still very young and could not do anything at all. But she just felt that this child was quite fateful, so she brought him back. Now that she thought about it, there were more coincidences and luck to be able to have this day. By the way, did Rong Xiu return to the Yuntian Tower previously? Yes. Then when you go back this time, go and ask him if he wants to come with us. With his talent, it shouldn't be a problem for him to ascend to the heavens and become a god. Shangguanjing instructed. After all, Rong Xiu came from the Yuntian Tower, so he was not worried about the bloodline totem. Chu Luiwen nodded slightly. I was planning to do that too. After making the decision, Chu Luiwen did not hesitate. After explaining to Sun Yi and the others, she left. Sun Yi originally wanted to accompany her, but he was rejected by Chu Luiwen. This kind of thing was a little risky to begin with. It would be troublesome to bring more people along. Thus, she headed towards the heavenly gate. When she arrived at the heavenly gate, there was no one there. Her footsteps did not stop as she walked out directly. However, before she could take a step, a barrier quickly appeared and blocked her path. At the same time, a cold voice was heard. Where are you going? Chapter 2251. Chu Luiyue turned around. The air shook, and a tall figure gradually appeared. It was Jin Yunlai. His speed was really fast. Chu Luiyue thought, but his face revealed a faint smile. As you can see, I'm going out. Jin Yunlai's eyes were filled with suspicion. You're leaving the Illusion God Palace now? By yourself? Chu Luiyue knew that he had misunderstood and explained. No, I'm not. I'm only going back to the Peach Blossom Cove to pick up someone. I'll be back soon. Jin Yunlai was stunned at first, then he realized what Chu Luiyue was saying. His face turned green for a moment. What did you say? Chu Luiyue's smile remained unchanged. Don't worry, the person I invited this time is a refining saint. He has the qualifications to enter the Illusion God Palace. Not only the Illusion God Palace, but the Illusion God Palace as well. But Jin Yunlai was even angrier when he heard this. Was that the main point? Wasn't the main point that she was too casual? Jin Yunlai's voice was stern. What do you think the Illusion God Palace is? You dare to leave without saying goodbye, and even threaten to bring someone back. Sheng Guanyu, do you think this is your home? He had always been cold and arrogant, but he wasn't someone who was easily angered. This time, he was really angered by Chu Luiyue. His face was ashen, and his eyes were burning with rage. At the same time, the pressure on his body rose rapidly. If Chu Luiyue didn't give him a satisfactory answer, he would immediately take action. Chu Luiyue's expression was magnanimous and sincere. Of course I know what kind of place the Illusion God Palace is. That's why I came here. Seventh Divine Emissary, was I not clear enough? The person I invited this time is a refining saint. Is such a person not qualified to come? Didn't you say that the Illusion God Palace's heavenly gate was opened to attract the world's top cultivators? Jin Yunlai was about to die from anger. This woman was very eloquent and knew how to avoid the important points and dwell on the trivial. A weapon refining saint naturally has the right to come here, but Sheng Guanyu, is it your place to worry about this? You, of course. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile and said softly, Don't worry. I'm their savior. To be precise, she had only saved Su Li. However, Su Li was Tang Ke's life. To a certain extent, she did save the two of them. Jin Yunlai choked. To be honest, the reason they didn't come to the Illusory God Palace this time was to help me guard the Peach Blossom Dock. If I don't go back personally to invite them, I'm afraid they won't come. Seventh Divine Envoy, are you still going to stop me? Chu Luiyue said slowly. His tone was relaxed and gentle, and there was even a smile on his face. However, every word was like a thorn, making Jin Yunlai extremely uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue suddenly seemed to have thought of something. Ah, Seventh Divine Envoy, don't tell me you won't allow me to come back after this trip? Jin Yunlai clenched his teeth and suppressed the anger in his heart with great difficulty. There won't be a next time. This meant that he agreed. Chu Luiyue suddenly laughed. I knew Seventh Divine Envoy wouldn't be so old-fashioned. Then, the next time I come back, I'll have to trouble Seventh Divine Envoy to open the door for me. Jin Yunlai waved his sleeves and turned to leave. If it wasn't for Zhenbao Pavilion behind her, he definitely wouldn't have let her go so easily. For so many years, this kind of thing had never happened in the Illusory God Palace. This woman was really arrogant to the extreme, but she always knew the limit, making it difficult for others to vent their anger. After dealing with Jin Yunlai, Chu Luiyue looked at the barrier again. Buzz, the barrier instantly dissipated. She moved her body and stepped out of the heavenly gate. When she came to the silver bridge again, everything around her was the same as when she came. The blue-black sea below was surging with waves. It was mysterious and powerful. She walked down the silver bridge. At this time, there was no one on the bridge except for her. On the other side of the sea, she could vaguely see several figures on the shore. After the heaven gate opened, the cultivators in the Divine Ruins world were still coming over. However, only a few succeeded. Even more people were trapped on the other side of the shore, or had silently sunk into the sea. After Chu Luiyue appeared on the bridge, he immediately attracted the attention of those people. The crowd was in an uproar. Someone came out of the heaven gate. That seems to be a woman? This figure, why does it seem so familiar? What nonsense are you talking about? Nothing. It's true. That seems to be Peach Blossom Doc's Lord Yu. A voice sounded and immediately attracted the attention of many people. Everyone's eyes fell on Chu Luiyue. After looking carefully for a while, they gradually quieted down and looked at each other speechlessly. It seems, it's really her? Chu Luiyue was too famous in the Divine Ruins world, and many people had seen her before. Therefore, he was quickly recognized by others. Previously, there was a rumor that Yu Zhu did come here. It should be her. But why is she out now? I heard that the Illusory God Palace has strict rules and will regularly eliminate some people. Could it be that is there a mistake? That's the Shangguan Yu who took down Peach Blossom Cove in one fell swoop. If even she doesn't qualify, then what are we still doing here? Everyone, although these words were unpleasant, they didn't seem to be unreasonable. Chu Luiyue glanced around and didn't see any familiar faces among those people, so she quickly retracted her gaze. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from below. She stopped in her tracks and looked down. The silver bridge was suspended in midair, extending all the way from the surface of the sea to the divine gate. Below was a boundless sea with surging waves. A wisp of faintly discernible familiar aura floated over. Immediately after, there seemed to be a sorrowful and painful groan that drilled into her ears intermittently. That sound seemed to come from the depths of the sea, and it sounded extremely distant and ethereal. However, in the blink of an eye, all the fluctuations quickly calmed down, and that sound also disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened. Chu Luiyue's heart beat violently a few times, her limbs were cold, and her palms were constantly sweating. Her temples were throbbing, and a string in her brain instantly tightened. That voice was Diwu Zhangzi's. She definitely didn't hear wrongly. Chu Luiyue held her breath and stared intently, trying to find some clues. However, there was nothing. It was as if the aura and sound from before were just her hallucinations. But she knew it definitely wasn't. Dinang might be trapped in the depths of this sea. Chu Luiyue stood still and waited for a long time. The sea breeze blew, and the waves surged. But other than that, there was no other movement. She pursed her lips and continued to walk down. Chapter 2252. She quickly arrived at the bottom of the silver bridge. Standing here, she could see the silver bridge submerged in the deep blue sea, with silver light flickering faintly. However, he couldn't see anything deeper. She looked around. The waves surged and changed unpredictably. Everything was the same as when she came. If not for the commotion just now, she would never have thought that Diwu Zhangzi was most likely imprisoned here. Countless questions surged in her mind, leaving her puzzled. She had always thought that Dugu Mabao and the other two were imprisoned together. But now, it seemed that was not the case. Even if they wanted to separate the three of them, there was no need for them to be separated by such a long distance, right? In addition, she had already seen how dangerous this sea was. If a high god powerhouse fell in, there would be nothing left of them in a few breaths. What kind of pressure and torture was Diwu Zhangzi enduring down there? The voice she heard clearly sounded like it was in extreme pain. For someone like Diwu Zhangzi, if he had not endured to the extreme and could not take it, he would not have done so. Chu Luiyue's heart trembled, and she felt a chill wrap around her body. After a long while, she took a deep breath and suppressed all her thoughts. No matter what, knowing that Diwu Zhangzi was trapped under this sea was still very useful information. For now, she could not act rashly. She could only wait and see. Then, she tapped her feet and headed toward the shore on the other side of the sea. The sea that was difficult for many people to cross did not pose any threat to her. Chu Luiyue's movements were light, and she reached the shore without expending too much energy. Many people were secretly amazed. Some people stepped forward, wanting to ask a few questions. Yu Zhu, I have urgent matters to attend to, so I won't stay any longer, Chu Luiyue said and left in a hurry. Her speed was extremely fast, and she soon disappeared into the dark night. Everyone looked at each other. What was so urgent that she chose to leave the illusory god palace? So many people tried their best to enter but could not, but she came and went so easily. Everyone had different reactions, but there was nothing they could do. They could only continue to think hard about how to cross the sea. The time it took Chu Luiwei to return was much shorter than when he came. On one hand, she already knew the route, and it would be more efficient to travel alone. On the other hand, it was also because her strength had improved. She ran as fast as she could towards the Peach Blossom Cove. Master, Madam has already left the gate of heaven. We should be able to return to Peach Blossom Dock soon. Uemo walked into the main hall and bowed respectfully, only to see that Rong Xiu had already changed into a snow-white robe. He was stunned. Master, are you going back? Rong Xiu nodded. Uemo hesitated. But Jun Jiuqing is already here. Do you really want to leave now? What if Jun Jiuqing took this opportunity to do something? Rong Xiu folded his sleeves and said indifferently, he wouldn't be so stupid as to behave so atrociously in the illusory god palace. Besides, his sword-like eyebrows rose slightly, and his peerlessly noble face seemed to be shrouded in a layer of illusory mist. I haven't accompanied you, for a long time. As soon as he finished speaking, the black flame in his left eye was finally extinguished. At the same time, the golden light in his right eye also disappeared. His pair of quiet and deep phoenix eyes returned to their original clean and clear appearance. Although Tsin Yi is there won't be much trouble. But you still have to stay here and watch over her. After all, you are her people. If anyone dares to do it again, just deal with them. There's no need to report it to me. Uemo immediately replied. Yes. But immediately, he thought of something and asked hesitantly, what's the matter? But, if it's the divine envoy, Rong Xiu's eyes were calm. It doesn't matter who is the divine envoy. Umo's heart skipped a beat. I understand. Chu Luiwei quickly returned to Peach Blossom Dock. Before he reached the entrance of the U Manor, Sanson, who had received the news, hurried out to welcome him. Master, you are finally back. Sanson was so excited that the flesh on his face trembled slightly, and his small eyes were filled with excitement. Then, he was stunned and looked behind Chu Luiwei. Master, where are Big Brother and the others? Chu Luiwei said concisely. They are still in the Illusion God Palace. I am the only one who came back this time. She said as she walked in. Where are Senior Tang Ku and Mr. Su now? Sanson hurriedly said, they are both at Qingshui Cliff. Chu Luiwei stopped in his tracks. Why are they there? Because the two of them are refining. Sanson suddenly became spirited. You don't know, but during the time you were away, the two seniors refined many more venerable divine artifacts. There are also many weapon refiners who have been learning from them. The two seniors said that since they have nothing to do, they might as well find some fun. Chu Luiwei, the mindset of weapon refiner saints is indeed different. Go and ask them to come back. Tell them that I have something to discuss with them. Forget it, I will go over personally. Sanson was at a loss. What is it? Why are you in such a hurry? At this moment, a gentle and pleasant voice sounded. Little you, are you looking for me? Chu Luiwei turned around and saw Su Li walking over from not far away. Tang Ku was holding several divine artifacts and following beside her. It seemed that the two of them had just returned from refining. Chu Luiwei went forward to welcome them. Mr. Su, Senior Tang Ku. She looked at Su Li. Mr. Su, I came back this time to ask you to come with me to the Illusion God Palace and help me with something. Illusion God Palace? Tang Ku and Su Li spoke at the same time, with some astonishment on their faces. Chu Luiwei looked at him with some astonishment. Senior Tang Ku, is there a problem? Chapter 2253. Tang Ku coughed. No, nothing. It's just that it's a little sudden. Master you, didn't you bring them to the illusory God Palace? Why did you suddenly come back? Chu Luiwei said, it's a long story. Let's go in and talk. So you want me to go to the illusory God Palace first to investigate? After listening to Chu Liuyue's explanation, Su Li finally understood. Chu Liuyue gently nodded. I know this trip is dangerous. I didn't want to trouble you, but Su Li pursed her lips and smiled. Little Yu, my life was saved by you. What's this small favor? Besides, I owe those people a debt of gratitude. If I can help a little, it's also good. She knew that Chu Liuyue had only succeeded in strengthening her physical body because of those few people's pointers back then. Now that they were in trouble, she couldn't sit idly by. Actually, I wanted to go to the illusory god palace to take a look. Now it's just right. She wasn't lying. Who didn't want to go to the illusory god palace? It was just that she wanted to stay with Chu Liuyue to guard the Peach Blossom Cove, so she didn't do anything. Now that Chu Liuyue personally came back to invite her, there was no reason for her not to go. Chu Liuyue sighed in relief and her red lips curled into a grateful smile. Thank you, Master Su. The illusory god palace is mysterious and unfathomable. It's very likely to hide all kinds of secrets and dangers. Su Li's willingness to help made her feel more at ease. That's right. Little Yu, is it okay for you to come back? Su Li pointed. The illusory god palace should have strict rules, right? Even if she hadn't been there before, from what she saw, that kind of place shouldn't be casually entered and left. Chu Liuyue laughed. That's right. Originally, ordinary people couldn't casually enter and leave. But I told the seventh divine emissary that I came back this time to invite the weapon refining saint, so he agreed. At the same time, he also drove them away in anger. But that didn't matter. No matter how angry Jin Yunlai was, she would not find trouble with her over such a trivial matter. Refining saints were extremely respected figures in the illusory god palace. Su Li was relieved. That's good. Chu Liuyue turned his gaze and saw Tang Ke sitting in the chair beside him. She seemed to be in a daze. Senior Tang Ke, Senior Tang Ke? Chu Liuyue shouted twice to wake Tang Ke up. What happened? What do you think of the decision Mr. Su and I made? Chu Liu asked. Tang Ke valued Su Li so much, of course, it was better to ask for his opinion. However, Tang Ke's reaction was a little strange. Ever since he came in, he seemed to be a little unsettled. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be like this when it came to Su Li and the illusory god palace. What was he thinking just now? Tang Ke came back to her senses and looked at her, then at Su Li. I'm going too. However, I might be a little late. Tang Ke's fingers lightly tapped on the armrest as he spoke hesitantly. Chu Liuyue was dazed and surprised by this answer. She originally thought that Tang Ke would definitely go with them. Su Li also turned to look at him. Tang Ke, are you very busy? Tang Ke's eyes twitched. He also wanted to go with them. However, I'm not very busy. It's just that the Holy Sun left behind some things that need to be dealt with. Although it's not a big matter, it might take some time. Chu Liuyue nodded in understanding. She originally wanted to wait, but if it took a long time, since it's like this, let's go first. Su Li thoughtfully looked at Tang Ke, then turned to Chu Liuyue. After all, those people's matters can't be delayed. If we can go earlier, we should go earlier. What do you say? Chu Liuyue pondered for a moment before responding. Then it's decided. After settling this matter, the stone in Chu Liuyue's heart was finally put down. When Sansan saw this, she came over and asked eagerly, What's the matter? Master, do you still want to take some medicinal ingredients this time? Chu Liuyue smiled and waved his hand. No need. Sansan rubbed his hands. This? Then Little Hachi also doesn't want it? Little Hachi's medicinal ingredients had always been consumed very quickly. Previously, when they were in Peach Blossom Cove, she would come to rob him almost every few days. It wasn't that he was generous, but purely because he was used to being oppressed. Thinking that they had been in the illusory god palace for so long, Sansan guessed that Little Hachi's stock should be almost used up. Chu Liuyue smiled. No need. The illusory god palace's herb mountain can now be freely entered and exited. Little Hachi will no longer be stopped. She can take whatever she wants. It's more convenient than here. She was very clear that every medicinal ingredient Little Hachi took from Sansan was silently recorded by Sansan. Although Little Hachi never paid, Sanson's small eyes widened. Herb Mountain? Stopped? Master, what's going on? Is there someone bullying little Hatchie? This won't do. No matter what, little Hatchie had been spoiled by them for so many years. How could she be bullied? Chu Luiwei took a sip of tea. Don't worry. Do you think she's someone who will be bullied? Even the 8th Oracle was bullied by her. Didn't she get back at him later? Even now, Chu Luiwei still remembered how Shu Jing's face turned ashen when he was angered by little Hatchie's words. Sanson heaved a sigh of relief. That's right. What's more, there's still Big Brother and the others. But what's the Herb Mountain that Master mentioned just now? Since the matter had been resolved, Chu Luiwei directly told Sanson everything that happened before. In short, after a fight with Liang He, I broke through to become a supreme doctor and refine the vitality stabilizing pill. It was also because of this fight that the 8th Oracle was punished and no longer dared to occupy the Herb Mountain. The corner of Tang Ku's mouth twitched. She silently mourned for Shu Jing in her heart. Did her brain get flooded with water? Even if she didn't know Chu Liuyue's identity, she could at least tell from Zhen Bao Pavilion's attitude, right? How could she do such a stupid thing? She was really amazing. For the sake of that small piece of land in the Herb Mountain, she was really blind and deaf. Sanson, on the other hand, was very excited. Master, I knew you were the best. Ha! Listen. She successfully refined the vitality stabilizing pill on her first try and directly broke through to become a supreme doctor. What kind of talent was this? Was there a second one in the world? That guy called he or whatever, he really didn't think things through. He actually had the guts to fight with you? Chu Luiwei tilted her head. Liang He is the youngest supreme doctor in the entire Illusion God Palace. He can be considered young and promising. Also, his attitude is not bad. At this point, she couldn't help but laugh. Of course, this might be mainly because he's chasing little Hatchie. Yan Qing, who had just received the news, stopped in her tracks. Chapter 2254. The voices continued to come from the room. What? That brat dares to have designs on our little Hatchie? Sanson snorted with laughter. Who doesn't know that our little Hatchie has always been surrounded by flowers and leaves? What is he thinking? Yan Qing's eyebrows twitched. Chu Liuyue's tone was light. Little Hatchie is beautiful and is the center of attention wherever she goes. There are many people who like her, so there's nothing strange about it. Master, what did little Hatchie say? What else can she say? That Liang He is all right in other aspects, but his appearance is a little average. Little Hatchie doesn't like him. Tise. She has such high standards. I reckon that few people can catch her eye. Sigh, Master, that Liang He didn't do anything overboard, right? There are too many perverts these days. What if he can't get what he likes and does something to little Hatchie? Yan Qing lowered her eyes as a cold glint flashed across her eyes. With Sun Yi and the others around, how could they let little Hatchie be bullied? Little Hatchie, on the other hand, made him run away in anger with just a few words. Sanson, what did she say? Chu Liuyue's voice carried a hint of laughter. She didn't say much. She just said that she already has someone she likes. If Liang He insists, she can consider taking him in as a concubine. Yan Qing looked up slightly, her eyes clear and cold. Tang Ku, who was drinking tea to calm herself down, couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of tea. Su Li's eyes were bright as she sighed gently. Can it be like this? Little Hatchie is indeed different. Before Chu Luiwei could say anything, Sanson said affirmatively. What's wrong with that? With little Hatchie's personality, she's really capable of doing something like that. 3-3. Chu Luiwei dragged out the word. Master, I'm telling the truth. Little Hatchie had said this before, and Big Brother was very supportive of it. If you don't believe me, you can ask Big Brother. Chu Luiwei said. There's no need for that. She didn't want to discuss this with Sun Yi yet. Yan Qing held her breath and suppressed the waves in her heart. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. Tuk-tuk. Come in. Chu Luiwei said as he looked at the door. Only a few people would come at this time. The door opened, and a handsome and cold face appeared in her line of sight. The corners of her lips curled up, just as she had expected. Yanqing, why are you here? Yanqing made a fist salute. Your Highness, you have guests. Guest? Chu Luiwei was stunned. Who is it? Swoosh. The sound of a bone fan opening could be heard. Then, a familiar figure walked out from behind Yanqing. It was a young man who looked to be in his late 20s. He wore a long indigo robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall and slender figure. He was handsome, and his facial features were impeccable. In particular, he had a pair of blue eyes. They were as clear and clean as ice, and they glowed with a faint cold light. There was a careless smile on his lips, and his eyes were flirtatious. Your Highness, long time no see. Jian Fengqi? Chu Luiwei was pleasantly surprised. She hadn't seen Jian Fengqi in a long time. However, Jian Fengqi didn't seem to have changed much from before, but the aura around him was much stronger than before. Clearly, he had also broken through to the great god level. Didn't you go to Lingxiao College? Why are you here? Jian Fengqi sighed. Although the college is good, your Highness isn't here. There's no point in staying here. Chu Luiwei laughed. It had been so long, but a certain someone was still as flirtatious as before. It seems that I should be glad that the senior and junior sisters of Lingxiao College didn't suffer from your scourge. Jian Fengqi clicked his tongue. Your Highness, you've wronged me. After I went to the college, I was really focused on cultivation. I didn't even leave the house much. Seeing how serious he was, Chu Luiwei's interest was piqued. Oh. Jian Fengqi smiled slightly proudly. To tell you the truth, Your Highness, I've already broken through to the level of a master doctor. When can we spar again? Sure, Chu Luiwei said calmly. I just broke through to the level of a master doctor, and I'm looking for someone to spar with. Jian Fengqi stumbled, and the smile on his face froze. He looked at her in horror. Master doctor? Didn't you say you're a master doctor? He had already done his research before coming here. Chu Luiwei nodded. Yes, I was indeed a master doctor before. Didn't I say that I just broke through? Jian Fengqi, there was nothing more shocking than this. God knew how much he had suffered in order to catch up with her. He had read countless medical books in Lingxiao College and tried countless times. There were a few times when he was almost forced to steal herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley, and he was almost caught and beaten by the elders. In the end, this was it. He had worked so hard to break through to the level of a master doctor, and was just about to spar with Chu Luiwei, but in the blink of an eye, she became a master doctor? Jian Fengqi felt his heart ache. He clutched his heart and took a few steps back. Just forget what I said just now. No, just forget that I was here at all. As he spoke, he turned to leave. He couldn't stay here any longer. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly remembered something and stopped in his tracks. Chu Luiwei looked at him with a half-smile. Why did you stop? Jian Fengqi opened his bone fan and covered half of his face, only revealing his blue eyes, which glowed brightly. By the way, Your Highness, is Hongyu with you? Chu Luiwei shook her head. No. Previously, Mu Hongyu had been in the Yuntian Tower. After taking down Peach Blossom Dock, Chu Luiwei thought that she would return, but she didn't. Later, she returned to the Yuntian Tower with Rongxiu and found out that Mu Hongyu was in seclusion and hadn't come out for a long time. She didn't disturb her. She should still be in the Yuntian Tower. Why are you looking for her? Jian Fengqi's eyes twitched. Your Highness, have you forgotten something? Her contract is still with me. She ran away all of a sudden. Who wouldn't look for her? Chu Luiwei looked at him with a half-smile. Why are you in such a hurry to look for her? You've never been short of servants anyway. Moreover, Snapper wouldn't be able to do such a thing. After all, Mu Hongyu was a princess. Although she couldn't be compared to Jian Fengqi, who was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain, she had been doted on since she was young. Besides, she was lively and carefree. Now that she was focused on cultivation, she wouldn't care about these things. Jian Fengqi's hands trembled slightly. Your Highness, even if you're on her side, isn't this too much? I've been refining medicine with you for so many years. Can't you be biased towards me? Chu Liyue said, Oh. I'll give you the money, and you'll give me the contract? Jian Fengqi immediately took a step back. No way. Chapter 2255. What's wrong with that? If you really don't want the money, I'll give it to you. Or give you a few times more. Anyway, money was the last thing she needed now. Jian Fengqi tightened his grip on the fan in his hand. I just can't. Chu Liyue leaned back in his chair leisurely. I told you to relax and let her be, but you didn't want to. I told you to buy Hong Yu's contract, but you didn't want to either. Then what do you want to do? Jian Fengqi, you're so hard to please. No wonder Hong Yu ran away. She glanced at Jian Fengqi. I heard that you've been looking for Hong Yu for a long time. If you have the time and energy, why don't you do something else? Jian Fengqi snorted softly. Your Highness, you know best how I treat her. She has never been wronged by me. Anyway, he had to find her. Chu Liyue suddenly said, Hong Yu? Jian Fengqi was stunned. What? Chu Liyue pointed behind him. Jian Fengqi turned around. Outside the courtyard, ripples suddenly appeared in the void. Following that, a figure fell out from it and crashed headfirst into a stone pillar nearby. Bang. Ouch, it hurts. Mu Hongyu held her head and gasped. She had been very careful, but she still hit it. Jian Fengqi was stunned. There was only one sentence left in his mind. What does it mean to search high and low only to find it by chance? Isn't this what it means? As soon as he thought of this, he subconsciously walked over. Mu Hongyu fell to the ground and rubbed her forehead. Just as she got up, she suddenly sensed someone approaching from behind. Without thinking, she threw a punch. Jian Fengqi reacted quickly and immediately dodged. At the same time, he grabbed her wrist and raised his eyebrows. Yo, we haven't seen each other in so long, and you're giving me a greeting gift? Mu Hongyu was shocked. She quickly turned around and her almond-shaped eyes widened. Jian Fengqi, why you here? Looking at her shocked face, Jian Fengqi ground his teeth. This young master is waiting for you here. Looking at his fierce look, Mu Hongyu shrunk her neck guiltily. Jian Fengqi originally wanted to hold her down and teach her a lesson, but when he saw the bump on her forehead, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Mu Hongyu waited for a long time. She thought that he was going to make a move, but he did nothing. What happened to your injury? Jian Fengqi asked, trying to suppress the fire. Mu Hongyu was at a loss. What injury? Seeing that Jian Fengqi's eyes were burning with anger again, she came back to her senses and pointed to her forehead. Oh, you mean this? I hit that rock just now. Jian Fengqi took a deep breath. If it weren't for his good self-control, he would have pried open her brain to see what was inside. How old are you? How can you get this kind of injury? Mu Hongyu was a little embarrassed. I've been trying to break through recently, and I accidentally lost control. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Chu Liyue had already walked over. Hongyu. Seeing Chu Liyue, Mu Hongyu felt as if she had seen her savior. Liyue, I finally see you. Chu Liyue glanced at Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi snorted in his heart, but he still let go of her. Mu Hongyu walked up to Chu Liyue in a few steps. Liyue, I have something important to tell you. Chu Liyue looked at her anxious expression and felt a little strange. What's wrong? Tell me slowly. Mu Hongyu asked nervously. Did something happen to Master? Digression. This is February, when Kavinka is bald, and every word is like a blunt knife being sharpened. Speaking of which, I feel that the comment section is really full of spoilers. Of course, the current speculation is not the ending of February, ha. Chapter 2256. The master that Mu Hongyu was referring to was Diwu Zhangzi. Chu Liyue's heart sank. Why do you ask? Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows. I encountered some problems in my cultivation, so I wanted to go back to the Red Moon Desert to find Master. However, when I got there, I found that it was completely sealed off by a crimson barrier, and I couldn't get close at all. I tried many ways, but I couldn't get in, so I came back to find you. The Red Moon Desert had undergone a huge change, so the people inside were probably in danger. Also, I was able to contact Master before, but it's completely cut off now. This was what Mu Hongyu was most worried about. Diwu Zhangzi treated her very well, and he wouldn't have done that if he hadn't encountered something. Chu Luiwei pursed her lips. It's a long story, but Senior Diwu and the others are indeed no longer in the Red Moon Desert. She raised her hand and pointed at the silver bridge that hung in the distant sky. Now they're all there. Mu Hongyu had been in seclusion for a long time, so she didn't know much about what was happening outside. After listening to Chu Liuyue's explanation, she finally understood. In other words, Master and the others are now imprisoned in the illusory God Palace? Mu Hongyu murmured in shock. Chu Liuyue's eyes flashed with hesitation. Dugu Mabao was now trapped in the illusory God Palace, so there was no mistake about it. However, Diwu Zhangzi was most likely suppressed under that strange and dangerous sea. As for Lan Xiao, there was no news at all, so she wasn't sure. But in the end, she didn't say this. Everything was unknown, so it was better to be cautious. Luyu, I'll go with you this time. Mu Hongyu grabbed her hand. Coincidentally, I've recently broken through, so I should be qualified to go in, right? Chu Liwei was a little stunned. You've broken through? Mu Hongyu's aura was still that of an exalted god, not a venerable god. I'm not talking about the cultivation of martial artists. I'm talking about my void body. Speaking of this, Mu Hongyu was very happy. Originally, I went to look for Master because I was stuck there and couldn't break through. But I didn't expect that I would stumble upon the right path and successfully break through. Really? Chu Liwei did not know much about the physique of the void. After all, in the entire Divine Ruins world, not many cultivators with the physique of the void had appeared in the past 1,000 years. Diwu Zhangzi was an exception. Mu Hongyu nodded. Luyu, do you know where I came from this time? Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely guessed something. Merlik. Mu Hongyu didn't wait for her to guess. She couldn't wait to say the answer. Her eyes were shining with excitement. Chu Liuyue was shocked. You directly crossed the sky curtain? Yes. Mu Hongyu nodded vigorously. Because I just broke through, and this is also my first time trying, there are still many areas that are not perfect. In the end, I couldn't control it well, so I was injured. However, I should be fine after practicing a few more times. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone present fell into deep shock. The sky curtain fell from the sky to distinguish the inside and outside of the Divine Ruins world. Other than the Gate Realm, cultivators could not pass through any other way. But now, Mu Hongyu actually said that she came directly? This meant that she no longer needed to rely on the Gate Realm to freely enter and exit the Divine Ruins world. Chu Liuyue suddenly remembered that a new Gate Realm had appeared some time ago, and it had attracted countless families and clans in the Divine Ruins world to compete for it. But now, compared to Mu Hongyu, what was there to compete for? It was hard to imagine how powerful Mu Hongyu's control of space had become. Seeing that Chu Liuyue did not speak for a long time, Mu Hongyu spoke again. Luyu, don't worry. Although I can only go in and out by myself now, after a long time, I will be able to bring others with me when I increase my strength. Chu Liuyue took a deep breath and gave Mu Hongyu a thumbs up. Hongyu, you are really amazing. No wonder Diwu Zhangzi was so happy to accept Mu Hongyu as his disciple when he heard that she had the body of the void. This kind of constitution. How could the word talent be enough to describe it? Even she, who was now a god and whose strength surpassed many cultivators who were also gods, did not dare to hope that she could ignore the Gate Realm and enter and exit the sky curtain freely. At the side, Jian Fengqi's lips twitched harshly, and the carefree attitude he had when he first came was completely gone. He only felt that he was very miserable now. It was fine that he could not defeat Chu Liuyue. After all, he had not won much in all these years. But the point was, how did Mu Hongyu ascend directly? With this kind of insane strength, Who knew how many people would be jealous of her? He recalled that he had pulled her aside and almost criticized her. Jian Fengqi felt a headache coming on. Why were the people around Chu Luiyue all so insane? There were so many insane people, but why was he not one of them? As if sensing his sad gaze, Chu Luiyue turned around. Jian Fengqi, what did you just say? You want to take Hongyu away? She smiled faintly. With the current situation, can you take her away? No wonder Jian Fengqi could not keep up with Mu Hongyu for such a long time. With Mu Hongyu's ability to control space at will, how could Jian Fengqi be her opponent? Sush. Jian Fengqi opened his fan and fanned himself. Mu Hongyu asked, "Are you feeling hot?" Jian Fengqi replied, "No, but I want to be alone." He wanted to turn around and leave even more than before. However, this person was right there, and he really could not move. Therefore, he could only stand there and suffer. Chu Luiyue looked at his rare frustrated expression and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. In fact, Jian Fengqi's talent as a celestial physician was definitely better than many people. Otherwise, she would not have agreed to his challenges time and time again when they were in Tianling. Although Jian Fengqi always lost, he did not lose by too much each time. This was very rare. Moreover, at his age, he was able to become a master physician. Even in the Consonance Academy, he was definitely outstanding to be able to do so. Even if he was compared to the geniuses of the first-rate families in the Divine Ruins, he would not lose at all. However, what was more unfortunate was that he was comparing himself to her and Mu Hongyu. Needless to say, Mu Hongyu had the body of the void, and there might not even be one in a million people. Those who could successfully cultivate to this level were even rarer. It was no wonder that he was so hurt. However, as long as he was given time, he would continue to improve in the end. Chu Luiyue even secretly felt that Jian Fengqi's talent as a celestial physician was not inferior to Liang He's. Thinking of this, she said, "Jian Fengqi, come with us." Chapter 2257. Jian Fengqi snapped out of his daze. Where to? Illusion God Palace? Chu Luiyue nodded. Yes. Jian Fengqi's expression flickered. He had witnessed the opening of the Illusion God Palace's heavenly gate. It would be a lie if he said he didn't want to go. Besides, Mu Hongyu would obviously go as well. He nodded without any hesitation. Okay. Chu Luiyue sized him up and smiled. There are plenty of herbs on Illusion God Palace's herb mountain, enough for you to use. You can take this opportunity to become a supreme doctor as soon as possible. It won't be too late to compete with me then. Jian Fengqi's chest tightened at the mention of this. He couldn't afford to offend her. Just like that, Chu Luiyue decided to go with them. She looked at Yanqing. Yanqing, is your master still at Yuntian Tower? Counting the time, it has been about a month. I wonder if Rong Xiu's matters have been settled. Yanqing paused. Before she could say anything, a strange fluctuation came from afar. Chu Luiyue looked back and saw a man slowly walking toward her from the sky. He was wearing snow-white clothes, a tall figure, and a handsome face. It was Rong Xiu. He came from the horizon. He looked like he was taking a stroll, but his speed was extremely fast. The spacious space seemed to shrink under his feet. He covered 100 miles with a single step. In the blink of an eye, he was already above the Yu Manor. He was heading toward Chu Luiyue. Before the crowd could even see his movements clearly, he was already right in front of them. What a crowd! Rong Xiu's gaze quickly swept across the people in the courtyard. His thin, scarlet lips curved. Looks like I came at the right time. Chu Luiyue stepped forward and sized him up carefully. After making sure that he was fine, she let out a sigh of relief. During this period of time, the entire Divine Ruins world was in constant turmoil. The incomplete and mysterious black divine body had already turned several places upside down, including the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix clan. She couldn't help but worry. While Rong Xiu was away, she had been worried that the Yuntian Tower would be a target. Fortunately, looking at calmly Xiu's state, everything seemed to be fine. Are you worried about me? Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. Chu Luiyue shook her head, then nodded. Rong Xiu was very strong. Even until now, she had yet to find out his true abilities. Logically, she knew that she did not need to worry about Rong Xiu. It was just that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they missed each other. What's more, now that the heavenly gates of the illusory god palace had opened, the entire divine ruins world was in an extremely unstable state. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed. Rong Xiu, your strength seems to have increased a lot? Although Rong Xiu didn't deliberately show it, she could still feel it when she stood close to him. Rong Xiu laughed. Isn't this normal? As a cultivator, as long as he continued to absorb the energy of heaven and earth and convert it into his own divine power, he would naturally be able to increase his strength. Chu Luiyue still felt that it was a little strange. But this change didn't seem to be a small one. How long had it been since the last time he left? Rong Xiu smiled and let her size him up. After a while, Chu Luiyue could only sigh helplessly. Forget it, there's always someone better. Every time she thought that her strength had improved and that she could compete with Rong Xiu, she would find that he had also improved. Even if he didn't seem to spend much time on cultivation, he would always be able to leave her in the dust. The two of them had known each other for many years. She should have been used to it. Is everything okay at the Yuntian Tower? She changed the topic. Rong Xiu shook his head. It's fine. Chu Luiyue was relieved and smiled. That's great. Come with us to the Yuntian Palace. Hearing this, Rong Xiu's deep phoenix eyes seemed to flash with a dark light. Yan Qing, who was standing next to him, also immediately looked over. Tang Ke put his hands behind his back, coughed, and looked at the sky. After a while, Rong Xiu asked, You want me to go with you? Chu Luiyue nodded. I came back this time to ask Mr. Su for help. On the other hand, I wanted to see how you were doing. Since you're done, then, isn't it just right to go with me? With Rong Xiu's bloodline and talent, ascending to the heavens and becoming a god was almost within reach. Seeing that Rong Xiu didn't immediately agree, Chu Luiyue was a bit confused. You don't want to go? Countless cultivators in the world yearned for the Yuntian Palace. Why did it seem that he didn't care about Rong Xiu? After a while, Rong Xiu said, I'll go with you. Deep in the thunder pool, forbidden area. Yizhao's eyes were closed and his breath was weak. Only the sound of the collisions in the Tianlei reminded him where he was at the moment. Ever since he was trapped here, he couldn't see the sun. Every minute and every second was extremely unbearable. He almost couldn't remember how long he had spent here. Yizhao. Mu Dongyu's voice came from the front. Yizhao didn't move, as if he didn't hear it. Mu Dongyu didn't mind. He knew that Yizhao could hear everything. Even if he was half dead, he was still the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. His vitality was extremely tenacious. You still refuse to surrender? Mu Dongyu questioned. Do you know that you're just asking for trouble? If you were half as smart as Yigong, you wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Hearing Yigong's name, Yizhao finally opened his eyes slowly. That pair of eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life and were suffused with the color of blood were filled with undisguised anger at being betrayed. Deserves to die. Yizhao spoke with difficulty. His voice was rough and hoarse. If not for him, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. As for him, he wouldn't be locked up here without any preparation at all. Mu Dongyu looked at him condescendingly. I know that to you, Yigong betrayed you, betrayed the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. But have you ever thought that maybe he's right? 10,000 years have passed. The current palace of the illusory god has changed. Yizhao, if you really care about the lives of the hundreds of clansmen of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, you should lower your head and make the choice you should. Mu Dongyu was actually quite patient. Ever since Yizhao was trapped here, he had held similar negotiations several times. What's the point of holding on like this? Yizhao sneered. Yigong is already one of your people. Why are you so obsessed with me? Mu Dongyu's mouth twitched. He's only opened his 6th meridian. Naturally, he can't be compared to you. Yizhao closed his eyes and didn't say anything else. Seeing that his attitude was still firm, Mu Dongyu finally changed the topic. I heard that the young master of your clan has the purest bloodline? Yi Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 2258. Yi Zhao clenched his fists tightly. Mu Dongyu continued. Pure bloodline. This is the same as the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. In time, she will definitely be able to break through the 9th meridian. Yi Zhao, if you can persuade her to surrender, I promise that your Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's past crimes will be forgiven. Even if it's not for yourself, you have to think about your clansmen, right? How long do you think you can seal them in the Phoenix God Mountain? The bloodline power in your body is almost depleted. After a while, the barrier will collapse on its own without us doing anything. At that time, won't the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan still be in trouble? Mu Dongyu stared at Yi Zhao. After a long time, Yi Zhao finally sneered. His voice was cold and sarcastic. When has the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan ever committed any crimes? You know best in your hearts who is in the wrong. Mu Dongyu's face darkened. He warned in a deep voice. Yi Zhao. However, Yi Zhao didn't seem to hear the anger and warning in his words. Or perhaps he didn't care at all. The choice made by our ancestor is also the choice made by our entire clan. Mu Dongyu, there are some things that you can do that our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will never do. I advise you to save your energy. Don't waste your breath on this useless nonsense. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you repeat it, my answer will never change. Any more words will only make me feel that you are more ridiculous. Mu Dongyu's expression was cold as he waved his hand. Whoosh! The black chains wrapped around Yi Zhao began to tremble violently, emitting ice-cold clanging sounds. Yi Zhao's body shuddered. He was trembling slightly due to the intense pain. A stream of faint reddish-gold blood slowly flowed out from the wound on his wrist and spread along the chain. The thick smell of blood gradually spread out. The surrounding golden tenlei seemed to have sensed something and became restless. Mu Dongyu snorted, and they gradually calmed down. Then, a ball of blood the size of a longan gradually condensed in front of Mu Dongyu. Within the ball of blood, there was a wisp of pure gold that flickered with a faint light. Mu Dongyu glanced at it and frowned. Although Yi Zhao was the clan leader and had opened his 7th meridian, he had been trapped here for so long that no matter how much bloodline power he had, there would come a time when he would be exhausted. Compared to the initial situation, the bloodline power in this blood mass was much more diluted. It was not even 1/5 of the original. Qi Zhao let out a soft chuckle. If you really have the ability, just kill me. Stubborn. Gritting her teeth, Mu Dongyu put away the ball of blood and turned to leave. This Yi Zhao was indeed a tough nut to crack. It had been so long, but they still couldn't persuade him. They didn't even show any signs of relenting. As for Yi Gong, although he was obedient, he was a traitor and couldn't be put in an important position. If Yi Gong had opened his 7th meridian, he could be considered. Unfortunately, Mu Dongyu walked forward. Wherever he passed, the surrounding tenlei quickly made way. After a while, he came to a certain place and suddenly stopped. He turned his head to look. A man was standing not far away, holding a hammer in his hand and knocking on a reef from time to time. Thud. Mu Dongyu was already in a bad mood. Hearing this sound, she became even more irritated. Who is it? She shouted in a deep voice. Mitsui was originally focused on investigating the situation inside the reef and didn't notice someone approaching. Hearing the sound, he suddenly woke up and looked back. You are... Mitsui's eyes quickly scanned the other party and suddenly understood. The 4th divine envoy? Mu Dongyu frowned. Who are you? What are you doing here? Mitsui cupped his fists. I'm Mitsui. I'm here today. Use the power of Tianlei here to temper my divine body. Mu Dongyu stared at him suspiciously. His appearance just now was indeed a little strange. Mitsui looked up and asked tentatively, May I ask, 4th divine envoy, can I not come here? He had already heard from his master that the depths of the lightning pool was a forbidden area and was not to be casually approached. Therefore, he only stayed at the edge of the pool. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right? Mu Dongyu didn't say anything. She looked at him coldly. Or, did I do something wrong just now? Although Mitsui was usually bold and boorish, he was very cautious. Otherwise, Sin-e wouldn't have specially chosen him to stay in the mystic forest. After a moment of silence, Mu Dongyu said, "It's nothing. Actually, many people entered the lightning pool. There were all kinds of people. It wasn't that he hadn't seen them before. What Mitsui had done was nothing compared to what many people had done. It was just that he happened to be in a bad mood." Seeing Mitsui's serious and honest expression, the doubts in Mu Dongyu's heart gradually disappeared. She moved and went into the distance. Mitsui watched her leave until she was out of sight. Then he slowly let out a sigh. Soon after, he turned back to look at the rugged reefs with some doubt. "TSK. This fourth divine envoy doesn't seem to know the secret here. Didn't he say that he was in charge of the lightning pool? He didn't even know this?" Mitsui scratched his head. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. On the other side, little Hachi was fiddling with medicine in her room. A rich medicinal fragrance wafted out of the room, almost filling the entire courtyard. Hua Shuang and Sun-yi were sitting opposite each other in the courtyard. Noticing the commotion, Hua Shuang looked in that direction strangely. "Big brother, what's wrong with little Hachi? Why is she so diligent in her cultivation these days?" Ever since her master left, she had been hugging countless medicinal herbs and plunging into her room. She hadn't come out until now. With little Hachi's personality, this was really strange. Sun-yi's expression was indifferent. He didn't even lift his eyelids. Master has already broken through to senior doctor, but she's still a senior doctor. It doesn't sound good if word gets out. Little Hachi usually seemed lively, but when it came to important matters, she was still clear-headed. Now that she was about to be left far behind, she naturally worked hard. Hua Shuang immediately understood. No wonder. Suddenly, the cry of a magical beast came from afar. Hua Shuang looked up and saw a golden-winged crow-bone beast flying over. It looked like an eagle or a vulture. Its entire body was black, except for a pair of dark golden wings. Under the sunlight, they shone faintly. Hua Shuang focused her eyes and saw that there was a tear on its wing. Blood was flowing out, and even the white bone could be seen. Its eyes were filled with deep fear. Behind it, a half-folded condor was rapidly approaching. Chapter 2259. From the looks of it, the two divine beasts had just engaged in a fierce battle. The golden-winged raven-bone beast was no match for it and fled. However, the half-folded divine vulture, which had the upper hand, refused to let it go and chased after it. The two divine beasts were actually of the same level. But for some reason, the half-folded divine vulture was exceptionally ferocious and emitted a dense, cold aura. Its indifferent and ferocious eyes flickered with a bloodthirsty light, as well as a hint of mockery. Its speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Every time the golden-winged raven-bone beast felt that it was about to successfully escape, it would suddenly speed up, but when it was about to catch up, it would slow down again. There were many times when the golden-winged raven-bone beast wanted to give up, but the other party would give it a glimmer of hope, causing it to flee with all its might. But it was also very clear that it couldn't escape the other party's pursuit. After running for so long, it had always been within the other party's hunting range. This caused the golden-winged raven-bone beast's mental state to become tense and on the verge of collapse. Seeing this scene, Hua Shuang frowned and a trace of disgust flashed across her face. The half-folded divine vulture is doing this on purpose. The weak are prey to the strong. This was a principle that everyone understood. Among the magical beasts, this was even more vividly reflected. However, the half-folded divine vulture was toying with an opponent that had already been defeated by its claws. It was truly vile. He stood up, curled two fingers on his right hand, placed them in his mouth, and blew a whistle. Hearing this melodious and resonant whistle, the golden-winged raven-bone beast subconsciously looked over. Then, without any hesitation, it flew straight towards Hua Shuangshuang. Although it was currently injured, it had already been forced to the brink of collapse by the half-folded divine vulture. At this moment, it was using all of its remaining strength. There was even a thin layer of black flames burning on the dark golden wings. Hua Shuangshuang raised her arm, and the golden-winged raven-bone beast fell head first towards her. Screech! It let out a low, mournful cry. Its aura was already extremely weak, and it relied on its last bit of willpower to grab onto Hua Shuangshuang's arm. Hua Shuangshuang lowered her eyes and glanced at it, her brows furrowed even more tightly. She took out a pill with her other hand and fed it. Without even looking at it, the golden-winged raven-bone beast directly swallowed it. If anyone else saw this scene, they would definitely feel extremely shocked. Demonic beasts were vigilant by nature and were naturally hostile to humans. This was especially true for divine beasts, who were alert. They would not easily trust humans. However, at this moment, this golden-winged crow-bone beast directly flew over to Hua Shuangshuang's side, and without the slightest hesitation, ate the food he gave it. It didn't seem to be worried that Hua Shuangshuang would take the opportunity to harm it. Instead, it trusted her with its life. This was truly strange. A dark and cold murderous intent flashed across the eyes of the half-broken Shenvulture when it saw this. Just as it was about to continue forward, Sin Yi suddenly looked up. His face was calm, and his narrow and indifferent eyes were as deep as the sea, making him unfathomable. An indescribable invisible pressure surged out of his body. The half-broken god vulture finally stopped when it noticed danger, and then a strand of deep fear and terror had inexplicably surged from the bottom of its heart. This place must not be approached. However, it was really unwilling to give up on the food that was already in its mouth. In order to take down this golden-winged skeletal beast, it had spent a great deal of effort. But now, it was all for naught. It paced back and forth outside the courtyard, unwilling to approach, but also unwilling to leave. Hua Shuangshuang glanced at the golden-winged crow-bone beast lying on his arm. When he sensed that its aura was gradually stabilizing, his expression relaxed slightly. Then he looked at Sin Yi. "Big brother, I really don't like this half-broken god vulture." Sin Yi said indifferently, "This is something from Jun Jiuqing. It's normal that you don't like it." Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. He turned around to take a look, and only then did he understand. "I see. I knew there were many different types of energy mixed within its body." He had heard of Jun Jiuqing's name before. This person didn't have a contract with any magical beasts, but he kept many of them by his side. Moreover, he liked to let them fight and kill each other. Only the strongest one would become his favorite. However, this was usually a short period of time. Once a better one appeared, he would immediately switch to another. The reason why this half-broken god vulture's energy was mixed was because it had devoured too many different types of magical beasts. Of course, there might also be humans among them. Wait, why is Jun Jiuqing's divine beast here? Sin Yi's expression didn't change. Of course, it's because he's here too. He's here. Hua Shuangshuang was about to say something when he suddenly saw a figure slowly walking toward them. "I was wondering why you didn't come back after so long. So you came here?" A lazy and evil voice sounded. It was Jun Jiuqing. Hearing this voice, the half-broken god vulture's eyes suddenly flashed with deep fear. It had been with Jun Jiuqing for a long time, so it could naturally hear the dense impatience and annoyance in his voice. It folded its wings and lowered its head slightly. Jun Jiuqing didn't even look at it. Instead, his eyes fell on Sin Yi. Their eyes met. At this moment, even the surrounding air seemed to have frozen. But after a while, Jun Jiuqing shifted his gaze and looked at Hua Shuangshuang and the golden-winged crow-bone beast on his arm. This was originally a little toy sent by the second divine envoy, but it seems that you are very interested in it. Since that's the case, I'll give it to you as a gift. Hua Shuangshuang frowned. Why did Jun Jiuqing's words sound like he had a close relationship with the second divine envoy? Based on her previous experience, These divine envoys were all extremely arrogant. But now, they were treating Jun Jiuqing so politely. A divine beast was given away just like that? Who didn't know that this was to be fed to his half-broken god vulture? Even if the golden-winged crow-bone beast couldn't be compared to the two ancient divine beasts, it was still a respectable existence among the divine beasts. She really didn't know what the second divine envoy was thinking. Oh right, I heard that she went back? Jun Jiuqing sighed softly as his slender fingers brushed past his eyebrows. Seems like she went back to invite the artifact refining saint over? Probably to enter the palace of the illusory god. Actually, I said before that I could bring her in, but unfortunately, she wasn't willing. She just had to go through so much trouble. Hua Shuangxuang snorted. What does what my master wants to do have to do with you? Patriarchy, you should focus more on yourself. Jun Jiuqing's gaze turned even colder, but his lips still held a smile and his sword-like eyebrows raised slightly. I just think that she's too stupid to seek something far away. Family? Xin Yi suddenly stood up. This also meant that little Hachi had officially broken through to Supreme Doctor. Just put up with it. Xin Yi took a few glances and returned the item to little Hachi. I'll get you a better medicinal cauldron later. There won't be a next time. Hua Shuangxuang looked at him as if she was looking at a pervert. Little Hachi had broken through to Supreme Doctor so quickly. If this was outside, who knew how many people would be envious of her? Why did it become putting up with it when it came to Big Brother? Little Hachi seemed to have already expected his answer. She weakly exhaled and put the jade box away. I know. But Big Brother, it won't be too late to say these words after I go to sleep. In order to refine this pill, she hadn't slept for several days and nights. Now that she had finally succeeded, she only wanted to take a comfortable bath and sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, all right? With that, she turned around and walked away. Hua Shuangxuang looked at her sympathetically. Do you plan to raise this golden-winged crow-bone beast yourself, or send it back? Xin Yi asked. Hua Shuangxuang returned to her senses and looked down. The golden-winged crow-bone beast seemed to be afraid of being abandoned. Its body trembled slightly. Hua Shuangxuang sighed. I'll raise it. On the other side, Jun Jiuqing had just passed through the gate of the Illusion God Palace when he stopped. The half-folded divine vulture that had been following him also stopped. Jun Jiuqing said, Come here. The half-folded divine vulture obeyed and arrived in front of him. Sensing the cold aura emanating from Jun Jiuqing's body, a deep sense of fear welled up in its heart. It's just a golden-winged crow-bone beast, yet you wasted so much time. There was no emotion in his voice, only a bone-chilling coldness. An extreme sense of danger welled up in its heart. The half-folded divine vulture's eyes suddenly widened. It spread its wings and turned around to flee. However, before it could move, a silver streak of light flew out, bang. Its head instantly exploded. A cluster of flames ignited and quickly swallowed the corpse. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The half-folded divine vulture died just like that. Not even its bones remained. It was just a bit playful. You killed it so straightforwardly. Aren't you a bit too heartless? A gentle male voice sounded. Jun Jiuqing looked up. The person who came was a young man in his 20s. It's just a half-folded divine vulture. What's there to pity? Jun Jiuqing laughed. It's not a crimson gold heavenly phoenix or a great phoenix dragon. In my opinion, the second divine envoy doesn't need to care. Yu Qian raised an eyebrow. You can't say that. The divine beasts of the Illusion God Palace are all extremely precious. It's naturally a pity that it died just like that. Jun Jiuqing's lips curled slightly. He didn't think much of it. If Yu Qian really cared, he wouldn't have reacted like this. Yu Qian said, I'm here to ask you something. Jun Jiuqing nodded. Second divine envoy, please speak. Yu Qian took a step forward. I heard that Shangguan Yu has 2 contracted divine beasts. One is the 3-eyed divine eagle, and the other is the current young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan? Jun Jiuqing's eyebrows moved slightly. Why you asking this, second divine envoy? You just have to say yes or no. Yu Qian smiled faintly. Elsewhere in the Illusion God Palace, Jin Yunlai was organizing the roster in his room when he suddenly heard footsteps. He looked up and saw that it was Xu Jing. He frowned slightly. Ever since Xu Jing was reprimanded in public, she hadn't shown her face much. Even when she returned to the Illusion God Palace, she always came and went in a hurry. Why are you here? He closed the roster and put away the crimson gold feather in his hand. Xu Jing's eyes swept across the roster and didn't stop. I'm here this time because I have something to ask. What is it? Xu Jing paused. She looked hesitant. After a while, she took a few steps forward and stood in front of Jin Yunlai. She asked softly, have you seen the first divine envoy recently? Jin Yunlai frowned. You went to see him? Xu Jing bit her lip. He refused to see me. Chapter 2261. Jin Yunlai leaned back in her chair. Isn't this normal? Everyone would think so. Why are you looking for him at this time? Of course, he won't meet you. Xu Jing frowned. Of course, I know that. However, I suddenly remembered something. The first oracle hasn't shown up for several years. All this time, many of the affairs in the illusory god palace have been handled by the second oracle. Don't you think this is a bit strange? Jin Yunlai frowned. What's so strange about this? The first oracle's most important duty is always to be loyal to the illusory god palace. Isn't it normal to leave those messy little things to the subordinates to handle? Do you think everyone is like you, wanting to control all the power in their own hands? These words were very harsh, and Xu Jing's face became very ugly. However, Jin Yunlai's status was higher than hers, and she was telling the truth. She was in no position to refute. She took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. It's normal, but now that the divine gate has opened, the first oracle hasn't appeared. This doesn't make sense. She raised her chin. I just want to ask you, have you sent this list to the first oracle? Jin Yunlai narrowed her eyes. The first oracle has already said that these matters are left to the second oracle. He doesn't care about other things and doesn't care too much. However, this list is of great importance and he doesn't even look at it? He didn't even ask about it once? The room fell into a short silence. Jin Yunlai slowly sat up straight. What are you trying to say? Xu Jing said, It's not that I want to say anything. I just feel that this matter is strange. In addition, some time ago, the sixth oracle returned. I heard that his physical body was completely destroyed, and even his divine body fell along with it. He is now in seclusion to recover. He is very scheming. Who could have caused him to suffer such a big loss? Jin Yunlai didn't say anything. The relationship between the oracles of the illusory god palace wasn't very close. Most of the time, they just performed their own duties. Sometimes, they might not even see each other once in a few years. He had been in contact with Xu Jing for a long time. Xu Jing lowered his voice, and there seemed to be a light flickering in his eyes. I know that the sixth divine emissary was ordered to leave, and this time, he returned with permission. However, according to the rumors, the first divine envoy actually left the illusory god palace a few years ago and only returned recently. Rumors? Jin Yunlai sneered. There's no evidence for this kind of thing, so it's best not to talk about it. Moreover, this matter was related to the first oracle, so he had to be careful with his words and actions. Xu Jing, don't blame me for not reminding you. Don't stretch your hands so far. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Xu Jing was not reconciled. But, if you really want to know, why don't you ask the first oracle again? This way, the truth would be revealed. What other rumor could be more credible than the explanation of the person involved? Or, you can go and consult the second divine emissary. In short, I won't stop you. But he wouldn't get involved. Xu Jing gritted his teeth when he saw his firm attitude. Roar. Suddenly, a roar came from outside the door. The two of them were shocked and turned their heads to look. Jin Yunlai got up, walked over, and opened the window. A muscular white lion was leaping over. Its ice-blue eyes were looking straight at them. They were cold, indifferent, and extremely sharp. When it saw the two of them, it licked its paws, and a trace of mockery flashed in its eyes. However, when the two people in the room saw it, they were both shocked and looked at each other. Why did the emperor's demonic beast suddenly come here? Then what they said just now, Shu Jing clenched his fists nervously, and his lips turned pale. This white lion rarely came here. Why did it suddenly appear today? She opened her mouth and was about to explain. Roar. Before she could say anything, the white lion had already retracted its gaze, turned around, and leaped away quickly. Its speed was extremely fast, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jin Yunlai suddenly thought of something and turned around. Where did it come from just now? Shu Jing was stunned. I didn't notice. What's wrong? Jin Yunlai slowly clenched his fists. If I'm not wrong, it seems to have come from the direction of the first oracle's residence. How is that possible? Shu Jing instinctively retorted. It's not easy to get close to the first oracle's residence. Moreover, it hasn't opened its door for several years. Even I was stopped outside previously. How could it have come from there? Jin Yunlai lowered his eyes slightly. This was his territory. He wouldn't be wrong. There was only the first oracle in that direction. It must have come from there. But why did it go there? Maybe I was wrong. Jin Yunlai closed the window. You'd better go back. Let's forget about the first oracle. If you really want to know, you know who to ask. With that, he sat back in his seat and made a gesture of sending him off. Shu Jing bit his lip and finally left. At this moment, Chu Luiwei and the others had arrived at the sea again. This time, there were more people with them. In addition to Su Li and Rong Xiu, who they had initially planned to invite, there were also Mu Hongyu, Jian Fengqi, and Yan Qing. Even Tang Ku, who had said that she had something to do at the beginning, had come along. When they arrived, there were many more people standing on the shore than when Chu Luiwei left. Ever since the Divine Gate opened, the experts in the Divine Ruins world had come here. When Chu Luiwei arrived with Sun Yi and the others, they were the first batch. And now, with the passage of time, more and more people naturally came. Because of the previous experience, Chu Luiwei and the others went much more smoothly this time. Other than Mu Hongyu, Jian Fengqi, and Su Li, who were still exalted gods, the others were already venerable gods. And Su Li herself was a weapon-refining saint. If she wanted to pass through the sea, she had plenty of divine artifacts. Mu Hongyu was even more so. She could even pass through the sky canopy freely, so this was naturally not a problem. So, in the end, the only one left was Jian Fengqi. Looking at the rolling waves in front of him, he grabbed Mu Hongyu's wrist without hesitation. Mu Hongyu looked up at him. Jian Fengqi coughed. Take me there, and I'll return the contract to you. Mu Hongyu was still a little hesitant at first, but when she heard this, she immediately agreed without hesitation. Deal. Chu Luiwei looked at him suspiciously. Based on her understanding of Jian Fengqi, he didn't seem like a straightforward person. Suddenly, a warm and strong hand reached over and held her hand. Let's go. Rong Xiu looked up at the silver bridge calmly and raised his eyebrows slightly. I hope everything goes well. Digression, it was about 7 o'clock. Chapter 2262. Sensing the movement of the Divine Gate, Jin Yunlai stood up and walked outside. However, as soon as he reached the door, he felt that something was wrong. In the courtyard, the void shook. Ripples spread out, and a figure gradually appeared. Seventh Divine Envoy. Seeing who it was, Jin Yunlai was shocked. Lord Umo? Why you here? This person usually followed the emperor and rarely showed himself. He also rarely came to the palace of the illusory god. Why was he so free today? Umo's gaze fell on the register in his hand. The emperor wants to see this divine enrollment register. Jin Yunlai was shocked. Now! Umo raised his eyebrows. Why, can't I see it? Of course not. Jin Yunlai immediately denied. However, he still felt that the emperor's sudden request was quite strange. This divine enrollment register was considered an item of the palace of the illusory god. The emperor would only look at it once every 1,000 years. After thinking about it carefully, the emperor had indeed not looked at it for a long time. However, this was the first time he had asked for it when the divine enrollment register opened. However, some people have already reached the divine enrollment register. I still have to register them, 7th divine envoy. Umo interrupted him with a smile. The emperor is in such a good mood today. You should know what is more important. Jin Yunlai's heart skipped a beat. He no longer hesitated and presented the register with both hands. Lord Umo is right. The divine enrollment register is here. Please take a look. Umo raised his hand. The divine enrollment register and the reddish gold feather flew lightly and landed in his palm. 7th divine envoy, if you are really worried, I can also help you register those people at the divine enrollment register. Then, I will bring the divine enrollment register back and present it to the emperor. Jin Yunlai was a little hesitant. I'm afraid it will be troublesome. It's just writing a few names. What's so troublesome about it? It will be over in a while. Or does the 7th divine envoy not believe me? I don't dare. Jin Yunlai lowered his head slightly. In that case, I will leave the divine enrollment register to you for the time being. Umo revealed a satisfied look on his face. Then the 7th divine emissary should rest for the time being. After the celestial emperor has finished reading it, I will naturally send it back. Jin Yunlai responded. Umo's figure flashed and quickly disappeared from the spot. Only then did Jin Yunlai raise her head, a trace of doubt flashing through her eyes. Of all times to enter the divine book, why did it have to be now? He thought for a moment and looked in the direction of the divine gate. Naturally, he couldn't see anything clearly from here. However, he was in charge of guarding the divine gate this time, so he could sense the barrier over there. Not long after, a familiar fluctuation came from that direction. Shangguan Yu? He muttered under his breath. You came back pretty quickly. She reckoned that the person with her was the weapon-refining saint she had invited earlier. From the looks of it, there seemed to be a few more. He probably brought his subordinates or someone he was familiar with. Anyway, this was not the first time she had done something like this. Jin Yunlai frowned. After a moment, she retracted her gaze, shook her head, and turned back into the house. There was nothing much to see. At the divine gate, Chu Luiwei directly crossed the barrier and entered the divine gate. Rong Xiu followed closely behind. Just as he approached the barrier, there was a ripple on it. Buzz, it faintly emitted a suppressive aura, blocking people outside. He stopped and withdrew his hand. Chu Luiwei saw this and didn't find it strange. She explained, it's probably because you haven't been here before, so you were stopped. Later, the 7th divine envoy will come and register you. As she spoke, she turned back and glanced in the direction of the star path. Strange, Jin Yunlai used to come very quickly. Why was she nowhere to be seen this time? Rong Xiu gently nodded. Then let's wait. Su Li and the others also nodded. Since they were already here, there was nothing to be anxious about. At this moment, Chu Luiwei felt a fluctuation behind her. She focused her gaze. A blurry figure appeared in front of her. In the fluctuating void, a man's voice could be heard. The 7th divine envoy can't come for now. I will be responsible for your registration. When she saw the silhouette of the figure, Chu Luiwei had already guessed the person's identity. Now that she heard the voice, she was even more certain. This person was the man who appeared at Herb Mountain that day. In other words, he was the person who was rumored to be by the emperor's side. Just as she was about to speak, the man had already raised his hand. A reddish gold feather flew from his hand and went straight to Rong Xiu's forehead. It gently swept across his forehead. The totem of the Yuntian Tower quickly appeared. The man asked for his name and opened the barrier. Rong Xiu lifted his foot and stepped through the divine gate. Chu Luiwei blinked. That was too fast? However, Rong Xiu had a bloodline totem to begin with. It was not strange that he could enter smoothly. The people behind him followed one after another. Jian Fengqi, Mu Hongyu, and Su Li did not have a bloodline totem. Chu Luiwei originally thought that this person would make things difficult for them. However, he only sent out a few letters without saying anything and directly let them in. In less than a quarter of an hour, all of them had entered the heaven gate. Chu Luiwei felt that it was a bit strange. She looked at the man again. Unfortunately, the man's figure and appearance were blurred in a halo. She could not see clearly. Clap. The sound of the register being closed could be heard. Some of you know the rules of the illusory god palace, so I won't say anything more. Then, the man's figure quickly disappeared. Jian Fengqi looked at Chu Luiwei. This illusory god palace doesn't seem that hard to enter? Mu Hongyu stretched out her hand. Give me the contract. Chapter 2263. Jian Fengqi's peach blossom-shaped eyes sparkled. With a wave of his slender fingers, a piece of paper appeared at his fingertips. Why are you in such a hurry? I've always kept my promises. I won't go back on my words. Mu Hongyu took the piece of paper and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, she froze. There's something wrong with this contract. Why isn't there my handprint on it? At first glance, there was nothing wrong with the contract, but the most important thing was that her handprint was missing. Jian Fengqi waved his fan. Oh, this one. I copied it when I was bored. Of course, it doesn't have your handprint. Mu Hongyu. What did you say? She gritted her teeth and stared at Jian Fengqi with her almond-shaped eyes. Jian Fengqi took a step back. Ahem. I only said that I was giving you the contract, but I didn't say which one. Mu Hongyu raised her voice. Of course I want the real one. Why did he give her a fake one? Jian Fengqi looked innocent. But you didn't say so just now. Everyone, they had seen shameless people before, but it was rare to see someone this shameless. Chu Luiwei was full of admiration and emotion. After so many years, Jian Fengqi, you're still the best. He was the only one who could do something like this. Oh no, there was someone here who could compete with him. Tang Ke. Without saying anything, she put the tombstones together. Now, the entire Peach Blossom Dock, no, the entire world of divine ruins, knew that they had been buried together for 10,000 years. Su Li tried to explain and clarify several times, but it was useless. In the end, she could only let it go. What were all of them thinking? Mu Hongyu suddenly had an ominous feeling. How many copies of this do you have? Jian Fengqi smiled, his eyes flirtatious. I haven't counted. Every time I think of this, I will copy 1, 2, 3 for copies. If you really want it, I can write it for you now. Jian Feng. It's too late. Mu Hongyu clenched her fists, ready to fight. Sigh. Jian Fengqi closed his fan. Hongyu, it's not appropriate to fight here, right? This was the Palace of Illusions. Especially when they were still at the entrance of the Divine Gate. Chu Luiwei coughed. Hongyu, don't worry, we're here. There will be opportunities in the future, Jian Fengqi. Mu's anger. Little you, didn't you say that the person in charge of guarding the Gate of Heaven was the 7th Divine Envoy? Who was that? Su asked curiously. Fengqi's. Of it. This is the second time I've seen it. Su Li nodded, deep in thought. Chu Luiwei had already told them about the Palace of Illusions. At this moment, a figure walked over from not far away. He was very fast, and in a few seconds he was in front of them. It was Chang Wanzhou. Master, Lord Sun Yi asked me to come and fetch you and His Highness. Chu Luiwei nodded. You came at the right time. I'll take Mr. Su to the Palace of Illusions. I'll leave the rest to you. Chang Wanzhou bowed respectfully. Chu Luiwei looked at Rong Xiu. I'll be back soon. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly. There was nothing to worry about. After Chu Luiwei said a few words, he invited Su Li to go to the Palace of Illusions with him. The two figures gradually disappeared into the distance. Rong Xiu watched for a while, then retracted his gaze and looked at Chang Wanzhou, raising his eyebrows. Long time no see. You've become a god? Chang Wanzhou responded. Rong Xiu smiled. It was faster than he had expected. Let's go. Chang Wanzhou took a step back, then turned around and led the way. This way, Your Highness. On the other side, Chu Luiwei led Su Li directly to the Palace of Illusions. They had walked past the star path. As Su Li walked, she looked around curiously. There were rows upon rows of houses here, but not many people came out. It seemed a little lonely. In the end, her gaze landed on the path that was flickering with spots of light. This is the star path? Chu Luiwei nodded. It's the same as the silver bridge from before. There are profound formations sealed below. The part we walked past just now was a profound formation of a profound king master. This part is a great profound king master. Su Li suddenly understood. Then these shouldn't be a problem for little you. She was very clear about how strong Chu Luiwei was. These are fine. The troublesome ones are the great grandmaster profound formations in front. Chu Luiwei smiled. Su Li was startled and looked forward in disbelief. A long and resplendent path extended upwards, all the way to the palace that stood in the distance. So, many? Although she wasn't a profound master, she still had some understanding. A great grandmaster profound formation was several times more difficult than a great profound king master. Moreover, even if a person reached the great grandmaster level, it only meant that they could use a profound formation of this level. It didn't mean that they could completely comprehend a profound formation of the same level. At a rough glance, there were at least 100 of them, right? So in the past 10,000 years, those who could comprehend all the profound formations here and enter the illusory god palace were few and far between. The seventh divine envoy that I mentioned to you before was one of them. But don't worry. You're a weapon refining saint and have the qualifications to directly enter the illusory god palace. Chu Luiwei smiled. Su Li was speechless. She reached out and patted her chest lightly. Fortunately, I'm a weapon refining master. Otherwise, these profound formations would really be difficult. Chu Luiwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Su Li was probably the only person in the entire world who could say such words. Ordinary weapon refining masters wouldn't have an easier time entering the illusory god palace than profound masters. How could a weapon refining saint break through so easily? Previously, Kong Qinglin was also said to have been stuck as a weapon refining venerable for thousands of years before finally breaking through the shackles and successfully entering that realm. It was just that Su Li's talent in this area was too strong. Moreover, her luck back then was also good. That was why she could so easily become a weapon refining saint. And how many people in the world had such luck? Ordinary people couldn't be envious. The further they went, the quieter their surroundings became. It was a silence that was extremely rare even for cultivators. The surrounding atmosphere also unknowingly became solemn and heavy. Although the two of them only walked by the side of the star road, they could still clearly feel the increasingly heavy pressure. Finally, the two of them arrived at the door. Chu Luiwei was about to knock on the door when he suddenly saw the door open and a person walk out. Chapter 2264. The person who came was Xu Jing. She originally planned to go to Herb Mountain, but she didn't expect to bump into Chu Luiwei as soon as she stepped out. Seeing that familiar face, Xu Jing was startled at first, then immediately frowned. Sheng Guanyu, why are you here? Because of the fear in her heart, her tone and attitude towards Chu Luiwei were much better than before. However, probably because there were no outsiders around, the impatience and irritation in her eyes were still faintly visible. Chu Luiwei didn't mind and smiled faintly. Greetings, 8th Oracle. I'm here to send Mr. Su to the palace of the illusory god. Mr. Su? Xu Jing's gaze turned slightly and only then did she see Su Li standing beside Chu Luiwei. Exalted goddess? Her frown deepened. Sheng Guanyu, don't tell me you don't know the requirements to enter the palace of the illusory god? She actually pulled such an ordinary-looking exalted goddess over and said that she wanted to enter the palace of the illusory god? Su Li raised her thin eyebrows slightly. Was she looking down on her? Although she had always had a good temper, she wasn't someone who would be looked down upon and bullied. Moreover, this person in front of her had specifically bullied little Yu before. The threshold of the palace of the illusory god is really high. So even a weapon-refining saint isn't qualified to enter? Su Li smiled faintly and asked. Shu Jing was startled and a trace of disbelief flashed across her eyes. You're a weapon-refining saint? Why don't I look like one? Su Li's lips curved slightly. Shu Jing was momentarily speechless and didn't speak for a long time. Chu Liu said, The seventh divine emissary also knows that I invited Mr. Su here. If you don't believe me, you can ask her. Shu Jing's face was a little ugly. She had just parted with Jin Yunlai not long ago, so how could she ask about this now? No need. She turned around and closed the door. Then she looked at the two with a cold expression. If you're really a weapon-refining saint, you can naturally enter the palace of the illusory god. Chu Liwei smiled. Does the eighth messenger mean that we have to open the door ourselves? Those who have the qualifications and strength to enter the palace of the illusory god will naturally have no problem opening the door. As Shu Jing spoke, she didn't want to talk to them anymore. She turned around and left. Su Li turned around to look at her. This eighth divine emissary is really arrogant. Chu Liwei was already used to it. All the oracles here are like that, but she is considered outstanding. Mr. Su, can you open this door? Su Li retracted her gaze and looked at the closed door in front of her. It shouldn't be a problem. It's just... She suddenly paused, a trace of hesitation flashing across her face. Little Yu, this place... She had long heard from Chu Liwei that this illusory god palace was exactly the same as the pavilion in the sky that appeared in the Red Moon Desert. Therefore, before coming, she had already mentally prepared herself. However, when she arrived here and saw the palace that truly existed, she still felt very strange. She thought for a moment and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Little Yu, have you tried going in? Chu Liwei shook her head. It's also my first time here. Su Li looked at her, a trace of light flickering in her eyes. Since you were able to directly enter at that time, perhaps it's the same here? Chu Liuyue's heart moved. Actually, she had thought of this before. After all, from the beginning, everything in the illusory god palace seemed to be against her. However, she didn't have any plans to try it for the time being. There were so many people in the illusory god palace. She didn't know how many pairs of eyes were staring at this place. If she really went in directly, it would cause a lot of trouble. That wasn't what she wanted to see right now. Therefore, for the sake of caution, she still chose to pass by. Su Li saw the change in her expression and instantly understood something. I'll go in and take a look first. Chu Liuyue gently nodded. Su Li took a few steps forward and stretched out her hand. The moment her palm touched the door, she immediately felt that there was a gaze sweeping across her body. At this moment, it was as if her entire person was seen through. Su Li calmed down and exerted force on her hand. Creak! The door opened. She turned her gaze slightly and looked at Chu Liwei. I'm going in. Mr. Su, please be careful. Su Li nodded and walked in without hesitation. Then, the door closed again. Chu Liwei stared at the door for a while and turned to leave. At this moment, a slight fluctuation suddenly came from her dantian. For some reason, the water droplet floating quietly in his dantian started to ripple. Chu Liuyue's heart tightened and immediately suppressed it. She quickly turned around to take a look. Just now, there seemed to be a force that was calling her. She slowly clenched her hands in her sleeves and stood there waiting for a while. Seeing that nothing was wrong, she left. At the same time, in front of the empty black jade square, a figure suddenly appeared. It was the second messenger of God, Yu Qian. His expression was slightly serious as he stared at the black jade square in front of him. His eyes seemed to be surging with waves. He had only left for a short while and there was actually such a commotion here. Could it be? At this moment, light footsteps came from behind him. He immediately turned around to look. His eyes were extremely sharp, like a cold light piercing through. Su Li stopped in her tracks and looked at the man who suddenly appeared in front of her. Her heart was in her throat. This man was extremely dangerous. Moreover, he seemed to be extremely hostile towards her. However, she had only just arrived and had not even seen the other party. Where did this hostility come from? Who are you? Yu Qian asked in a low voice. Su Li suppressed her emotions and looked calm on the surface. She nodded and bowed. Her voice was calm and gentle. Su Li. Yu Qian frowned and his eyes swept across her face. Finally, his gaze fell on the letter at her waist. Are you new? Yes. Yu Qian stared at her for a long time before slowly saying, Refining saint? Su Li was shocked. Refining saints were different from martial artists. Their cultivation level was hidden very deeply. Outsiders basically could not see it. However, this man only looked at her for a while and guessed it directly. She nodded. The trace of worry in Yu Qian's heart disappeared. All the refining saints in the world had an inseparable close relationship with the palace of the illusory god. This meant that the fluctuation just now was caused by her. Go southwest. The fifth messenger of God will be in charge. Su Li felt that the dangerous aura of the other party disappeared in an instant. She was puzzled, but she did not ask. Thank you, messenger of God. Although she did not know the other party's ranking in the palace of the illusory god, to have such an aura, it must be the messenger of God. Yu Qian had already looked at the black jade square again. The flame at the top of the white jade pillar was much dimmer than before. He frowned. Digression, today, I have to go out and try to get to 6 o'clock. Chapter 2265. On the other side, Chang Wanzhou had already brought his men back to his residence. Due to the arrival of Rong Xiu and the others, the original courtyard was no longer big enough. However, Sin Yi had already tidied up the few courtyards beside them and was waiting for them to arrive. There were many courtyards in the Illusion God Palace, and the few courtyards beside them happened to be empty, so it was convenient for them. This commotion also attracted the attention of some people. Xiao Ran was originally sitting on his roof in boredom, staring at the star path and deep in thought. When he saw Chang Wanzhou coming over with his men, he was shocked, because he had never seen the people behind him before. On second thought, he remembered that Chu Luiwei seemed to have said that he would go back and invite the artifact refining saint over. But why were there so many people? Seeing the group of people approaching, Xiao Ran touched his chin. These people are not weak, especially the young man in front, who was dressed in snow-white clothes. He was handsome and devilish, exuding a noble aura. If I'm not wrong, he should be that girl's husband? There was also the young man in black clothes behind him. He held a sword in one hand and looked cold and indifferent. He seemed to be a follower, but he had already broken through to the god realm. Xiao Ran was suddenly stunned and stared at Yan Qing a few more times. This person? Why does he look so familiar, as if I've seen him somewhere before? He frowned slightly and kept searching in his mind, but he couldn't find an answer. However, that familiar feeling lingered in his mind. At this moment, Yan Qing sensed his gaze and looked over. His facial features were handsome, but there was a faint coldness in his eyes. He was like a moving iceberg. In just an instant, Yan Qing retracted his gaze. Xiao Ran touched his chin. This person? I've never seen him before. Perhaps it was just my imagination? While Xiao Ran was secretly conflicted, Rong Xiu and the others had already arrived. Sin Yi was already waiting at the door. When he saw Rong Xiu and the others, he nodded slightly and bowed. Your Highness. Rong Xiu's gaze swept past him as he nodded and walked in. Xiao Ran didn't withdraw his gaze until all of them had entered the room. He frowned slightly. No matter how he looked at it, there didn't seem to be a problem. But bang! Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. Xiao Ran quickly raised his eyes to look over, only to see a silver stream of light soaring into the sky from the star passage. It quickly transformed into a profound formation in midair. Someone else is taking the star path? Xiao Ran's heart skipped a beat. He instantly soared into the air and looked over. When he saw it, he was overjoyed. Wasn't the woman who was currently standing on the star passage breaking the profound formation Chu Luiyue? She had just brought people back, and she was already trying to break the Xian formation? Isn't this a little too efficient? Just as Xiao Ran was thinking about this, he saw another ray of light fly up. Another Xian formation was successfully activated. He was taken aback. Little girl, how can you be so fast? The commotion on the star passage quickly attracted the attention of the other people in the illusory god palace. When they discovered that this person was still Chu Luiyue, many people were rather surprised. Isn't that Shangguanyu? Why is she taking the star path again so quickly? It seems like only half a month has passed since she turned back halfway. In such a short time, she has already comprehended the profound formation of the Great Xian Emperor Division? Tise. She has already activated 2 profound formations consecutively. It's probably not right to say that she has only broken one, right? Other things aside, her talent as a Xian master is indeed very shocking. I wonder how far she can go this time? She probably came because she has a certain level of confidence. However, the number of profound formations in the Great Xian Emperor Division is not small. She has only deciphered less than 1/10 of them. She might be able to walk for a while, but it probably won't be too long. Everyone had different opinions about Chu Luiyue's actions. Some were looking forward to it, while others disagreed. Chu Luiyue, who was standing on the star path, automatically ignored all these voices. She had originally planned to continue walking the star path after inviting Su Li over. To the current her, these profound formations of the Great Xian Emperor Division were no longer of any difficulty. The key was whether Su Li could find some information on her side. And during this period of time, she also planned to walk forward as much as possible. This way, if something happened, she could openly enter the illusory god palace with the fastest speed possible. With this thought, she lightly waved her hands in front of her. Several streams of light flew out and intertwined with each other. Not long after, another profound formation was deciphered. She took a step forward and continued forward. Time slowly passed. The number of onlookers also increased. Gradually, they finally realized that Chu Luiyue did not seem to have returned on a whim because she had deciphered a few profound formations at the last moment. She had clearly made preparations long ago. Seeing her decipher profound formations one after another and easily activate them, everyone's attitude rapidly changed. These profound formations of the Great Xian Emperor Division are not simple. She actually managed to draw them so smoothly and easily. In the crowd, someone could not help but mutter in a low voice, unable to conceal the shock in his voice. Previously, although her performance was very outstanding, most of those were profound formations of the Great Xian Emperor Division. It was not that no one in the illusory god palace could do it, but it might take a little longer. But this time was different. The difficulty of the profound formations of the Great Xian Emperor Division had increased by more than a little. Even if she had not rested during this period of time to study these, it should not be so heaven-defying, right? Mu Yafeng had also arrived at some point in time. However, she did not go to the very front and only chose a hidden corner to wait. From where she stood, she could see that Chu Luiyue was following the star path and was slowly approaching here. She was also getting closer and closer to the illusory god palace. When she looked carefully, she could even see the calmness in Chu Luiyue's eyes. It was very clear that these profound formations of the Great Xian Emperor Division that others found difficult to decipher did not pose any threat to her at all. Along the way, she had already activated more than 10 profound formations continuously without stopping to rest. But there was not the slightest bit of fatigue on her face. It seemed like she was just strolling leisurely. Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth. A few voices of discussion came from the side. Don't you guys feel that Shangguanyu seems to be very relaxed when walking this segment of the star path? You think so too? I thought I was the only one who felt that way. From the beginning until now, how long has it been? She hasn't stuttered even once. The time she spent on each profound formation is very short. Even Mu Yafeng did not reach this level back then. Mu Yafeng can't compare to Shangguanyu, right? She broke her record the last time. Sigh, if not for the fact that Shangguan Yu just came to the illusory god palace, I would have thought that she had already seen these profound formations. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in Mu Yafeng's chest. She suddenly said, "How do you know that she hasn't seen them before?" Chapter 2266. Hearing her voice, those people turned their heads and looked over. They hadn't noticed it before, but now that Mu Yafeng took the initiative to speak, they realized that she had come here without them knowing. They immediately became nervous. Did she hear what they said just now? No matter what, Mu Yafeng was the most promising Xian master in the illusory god palace to complete the Star Road. Now that someone was performing better than her, how could she feel good? They looked at each other, and one of them finally couldn't help but ask, "Mu Yafeng, what do you mean by that? Could it be that Shangguan Yu has really seen these Xian formations? That's impossible. How long has she been in the illusory god palace? And this is her first time coming to this place on the Star Road. It's not good to say such things, right?" Another person said softly. Mu Yafeng smiled coldly. What's there to not say? When she passed by the Xian King teacher's Xian formation, didn't she say that she had seen a portion of it before? They choked. Chu Luiwei did say that, but those Xian formations weren't very high level. Those who had some background in the Divine Ruins world might have seen many of them. There was nothing much to say about that. But the Xian King teacher's Xian formation was different. In the world, there was no place with more high-level Xian formations than the illusory god palace. Even if she had seen them before, it was at most a portion. It was absolutely impossible for her to see all of them, let alone cover all the Xian formations on the Star Road. Do you really think that there's someone in this world who can instantly comprehend the Xian formations of the great Xian King teacher with just a glance? Mu Yafeng said softly with a calm expression. Their expressions changed. What do you mean by that? That's right. No matter how talented Chu Luiwei was, she shouldn't be so heaven-defying. If this continued, she could almost tie with the seventh divine emissary, right? One had to know that even the seventh divine emissary spent hundreds of years to complete the Star Road. This was also why he could become the seventh divine emissary. How long had Chu Luiwei been here? Wasn't this going too smoothly? Mu Yafeng said. I don't mean anything. Everyone has sharp eyes, and I don't need to say anything. These words made people even more suspicious. Suddenly, a young man beside him seemed to have thought of something. Oh right. I remember that Shangguan Yu has a good relationship with Zhen Bao Pavilion. Lord Ji seemed to have personally looked for her and invited her to the Treasure Pavilion. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused quite a commotion. Really? Did His Excellency personally invite him? What kind of status does Lord Ji have? Why would he be so courteous to her? But she doesn't have a bloodline totem. Logically speaking, this shouldn't be the case, right? Of course it's true. I'm not the only one who saw it that day. Wait, did you forget that the Treasure Pavilion still has a copy of the mythical flame diagram? Could it be that she saw this? The crowd fell silent for a moment. They knew very well what the mythical flame diagram was. If that was the case, it wouldn't be difficult to explain all of this. However, there was another problem. The mythical diagram of flame is so precious. How can Shangguan Yu be qualified to read it? You want to buy it? That was impossible. Even a well-known figure like Mu Yafeng, who had been accumulating wealth for many years, didn't have enough capital to buy it. Needless to say, the others didn't. Could it be that His Excellency Ji is behind this? Someone whispered, but halfway through, he was suddenly interrupted. I say, what's the point of guessing here and there? Everyone, including Mu Yafeng, was shocked and turned around to look. Xiao Ran had appeared not far behind them. At this moment, he was leaning lazily against the wall with his arms crossed. He looked at them with a half-smile. Anyway, His Excellency Mingshu spends most of his time in the Treasure Pavilion. Isn't it better for you to go over and ask him? Everyone was speechless. His Excellency Mingshu always looked amiable, but everyone knew that he was not to be trifled with. Even the 8th divine envoy was not afraid of the treasure pavilion, let alone them. If they went over now, wouldn't they be making trouble for themselves? When Mu Yafeng saw Xiao Ran, a trace of fear flashed across her eyes. However, at this moment, Xiao Ran suddenly looked over. Mu Yafeng. The corners of his lips curled up. Others may not know why Shangguan Yu was able to progress so smoothly on the Star Road, but don't you know? Mu Yafeng's lips instantly turned pale. The people beside her looked at Mu Yafeng and then at Xiao Ran in confusion. What was he hinting at? However, Xiao Ran didn't say anything else. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Luiyue. Actually, he was also very curious. How far could she go this time? Mu Yafeng clenched her fists and shut her mouth. The fact that Chu Luiyue was copying Xian formations for the treasure pavilion was considered a secret. If this was said by Chu Luiyue or the treasure pavilion, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, if it was said by her, it was different. Although she was very unhappy with the fact that the treasure pavilion was biased towards Chu Luiyue, she wasn't stupid enough to offend them publicly. While he was arguing, Chu Luiyue had already cracked 3 more Xian formations. Many people were bewildered when they saw her stubbornly moving forward. Where can she go? Rong Xiu stood in the courtyard and looked up slightly. He could see the silver stream of light rushing into the sky. Xian formations quickly condensed and dissipated, and the distance kept moving forward. Obviously, she was getting closer and closer to the illusory god palace. Shangguan Jing walked out of the house and lowered his eyes, as if in deep thought. He had just asked Tang Ku some questions. Ever since he saw Kong Qinglin break through to the weapon-refining Saint Realm with his own eyes, he vaguely felt that he was closer to that threshold. However, a little bit was still a little bit. Fortunately, Tang Ku was also here and gave him a lot of advice. He felt that he had comprehended something, but he was still lacking something to break through the window paper. Seeing Rong Xiu standing in the courtyard, he raised his voice and said, "Rong Xiu, you've just arrived at the illusory god palace. Why don't you walk around?" You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.